It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here. It is Wednesday, October 13th, 2021, and the Wes Buck Show starts right now. First off, wherever you are following along on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel, the Facebook page, listening along on the podcast, please know how much we appreciate each and every one of you guys being a part of this every Wednesday afternoon. It's an absolute blessing, honor, privilege, everything you can imagine to be talking drag racing, spreading the gospel of the great American motorsport right here on the World Wide Web. And we've got a hell of a show lined up for you today. In hour one, the gang and I, of course, will be breaking down this past weekend's Texas NHRA Fall Nationals, previewing this coming weekend's No Mercy 12 at South Georgia Motorsports Park, the NHRA's return to Bristol Dragway, the PDRA World Finals, No Prep Kings in Dallas. It's that time of year, guys. I mean, there's a drag race going on everywhere, and they're all significant. We got a lot to cover. To kick off hour 2, very cool, we'll be joined by the one and only Lyle Barnett. This is a huge deal. Lyle scored his first ever NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series win this past weekend at the aforementioned Texas Fall Nationals in Dallas. Without question, in my opinion, this is the story of the year, the feel-good story of the summer. And if you don't know Lyle Barnett's story, we hope to introduce you to this incredible young man right now, in a little bit, because in my opinion, this guy represents the best our sport has to offer. Such a privilege to have him on the show today, and a lot to cover, a lot to unpack with him. To kick off hour 2, we'll be joined by, around 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll check in with PRI President Dr. Jamie Meyer. There's so much going on in our industry right now, both good and bad. I think we have to be honest, right? There's incredible things happening from sea to shining sea. There's all sorts of great stuff, but there are some things that I think should have us concerned, or at least have us paying attention. And I'm hoping we can gain a little bit of insight and wisdom and perspective from Dr. Jamie Meyer. He's a real deal car guy, which is what's so cool, to have someone in a high level position, a position of power, politically speaking, in our sport, at the helm of the performance racing industry conglomerate, responsible for the massive trade show in Indianapolis every year, and really responsible for having their finger to the pulse and kind of steering the ship of the racing industry as a whole. Tons of stuff to talk about with Dr. Jamie Meyer. And like I said, he will be joining us, I believe, right at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. As we embark on hour 3 here today, we'll hear from Camrie Caruso, who's fresh off massive news that she'll be competing full time in the Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series Pro Stock Division in 2022. This is huge news. Second ever full-time female in Pro Stock, family operation, their own in-house engine program with Titan Performance engines, Titan Racing engines out of Denver, North Carolina. It gets me every freaking time. Very, very cool story. But, of course, without fail, as always, I've got to check in with my guys, Mike Carpenter and Murder Tundra, in studio with me, as always, every Wednesday afternoon. What's cracking, fellas?
What's up?
What's up, man?
Man, I tell you,
this is fun, right? Man, how fun is it to do this?
I think it's the funnest thing we do.
I feel like we were just getting warmed up with the DI ride-along on Monday.
We've been on the internet a lot lately. You know what I mean? I feel like my kids. You can't get, I can't get them off.
We need a screen time limit on ourselves, right?
Well, I'd say people are going to want a screen time limit with me. They'll be like, Wes has been on my screen enough. I've seen enough of Wes. But to be honest, I think, and we experienced this, I think I can speak a little bit for Mike and JT. You've encountered this a lot down in Valdosta at Ducks races or at Tyler Crossnose events, his Outlaw Streetcar reunion events. Hold on one second. This is important business. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes we, on this side of the fence, we're like, oh man, it's no big deal. We're going to get together on the internet and talk about drag racing. But this is rapidly escalating. I know obviously I'm biased because my name's on the marquee or whatever, but like, I want to speak for everybody at Drag Illustrated. What we're doing here is very important. I mean, you hear it in the intro, but our sport needs a place for unfiltered conversation. There needs to be a place where people can say what they think, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I don't think that everything that's said here, whether it's from myself, either of you guys, or our guests, I'm not saying everything that's said here is fact or the gospel or the final word, but I do think these conversations need to be had, and they need to be had out in the open. We've got to be willing to be critical at times. We've got to be willing to celebrate at times and shine a light on people and pile on positively. But we also need to be, someone's got to be here to keep people honest, to talk about troublesome situations when they arise, issues in our industry. And I'm just really proud, man. I mean, earlier this week, think about this, Mike, JT, we've been going to PRI, SEMA for years, decades, over a decade at this point. And earlier this week, and I don't mean to air out, I'm not trying to provide the receipts necessarily, but I got a text message from Juan Torres, who's like the media director, the public relations director at SEMA and PRI. I'm not sure his exact job title. Great guy, though. We've known him for a long time.
Great guy.
What he said to me, I think it was Monday, he goes, man, it's a huge win for us to get Dr. Meyer on your show. And I thought, Really? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and he goes, no, man, you're communicating with who we're trying to communicate with. Like, you've got a direct pathway to people who make a difference in our industry, right? The people that are actually going racing.
Right. It's a great platform for Dr. Meyer. I mean, introducing himself to this audience. We've known him for a long time. You really have. You've known him for quite a while. I think even before he was at Chevy.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I first met Dr. Meyer. He was announcing at the NMCA.
Yeah. So we'll dive into all that. But the guy's got a long history. He's leading SEMA/PRI through uncharted waters at this time. So I'm looking forward to talking to him.
I am too. And I really am proud of this. I mean, I think last week, we were in the moment last week, and I don't know that we got to talk about it as much as maybe we should have, but what an opportunity it was to set up shop at the Texas Motorplex, to be in the tower, awesome. Third floor of the tower, or second floor of the tower, with this, crazy view of drag racing's first super track. We're being joined by, we got Clay Milliken and Billy Meyer and Scott Palmer, like pacing around the room, waiting for their turn to be on camera. And I just, thinking about it now, this is one of those things where I would tell someone else, and it's one of those moments where I need to like take my own advice. Is that like, if I was talking to my kids about a situation like that, or if I was talking to either of you two or anyone else, I'd be like, hey man, you need to take that in for a minute. Like, that was a moment. You need to recognize that and be excited about it and be proud of it, because we blow through this stuff so quickly that we don't really give ourselves any time or any opportunity to be excited about it or be proud about it.
The news cycle, right? I mean, we talked about it with cable news. We've talked about how quickly the news cycle turns over.
It does.
I think that's happening more and more in drag racing. And this is where we're having this conversation. We're getting the feedback. Again, you say it all the time. These comments, the feedback from the people watching, that's our oxygen for this show. That moves the needle for us. So let us know what you're thinking. Let us know where you're from, what's going on.
Yeah, and I do want to remind everybody
to have a conversation in these comments.
Yeah, man, we read them. I mean, like, JT is in these comments.
If you see my eyes cutting back and forth, it's because I'm reading these comments.
It's true, man. I mean, and what I like about this too is it's not the typical commentary. And I'm not trying to like throw stones or anything, but like, you look at the comment section of most YouTube videos or most videos on Facebook or whatever, and it's just
hate.
It's hate. It's lefts and rights and jabs and uppercuts, and it's just. It breaks your heart a little bit. And I'm so proud of the company we keep, even on the internet. I mean, it's something that I think we should really celebrate, that we get incredible feedback from folks. And some of the stuff, there's like people dropping knowledge in the comments here. I mean, you can read a little
Curtis
bit.
Thomas, we met Curtis in Ennis this past weekend, live and in person.
It was cool too. And to bump into, I tell you, man, I don't mean to, I was walking around, I think it was Monday or Tuesday night. I think it was actually Monday night during Scott Palmer's Nitro Sideshow. Incredible kind of secondary happening of the week, or, well down the list of all the stuff they had going on in Texas for the Fall Nationals. But I remember walking around Monday night. It was like right before they ran like the main show, the Studezilla and these Nitro powered door slammers. And I hear some people hollering my name. And I'm looking around, I'm like, who in the hell is yelling my name? This is bananas. I'm looking around, and it's some people in the stands, and they're like, we watch it every Wednesday, Wednesday, and then we replay it at night. And I'm like,
saw that.
Thank you. I mean, and I just really do want to say that, like, thank you to each and every one of you, man.
On the deal Wednesday, or Tuesday night. I'm sorry,
Monday night.
Tuesday at the end of the Pro Mod shootout. More of the same. That's when we ran into Curtis. Then I think he was crewing on a top fuel card the rest of the week.
Dude, I don't know if Curtis is paying attention, but I was looking out of the tower and I see Curtis down hanging out with the Haviland Heroes is what I'm calling them. Alex Laughlin's top fuel team, right? And he's like dressed the part. And I was just waiting for him to like grab a breakover bar and like, turn the motor over a couple times or something, man.
He's got the throttle stop in his mouth. He's ready. He's the official crew chief deal.
You sent me a text that said Curtis is on the on that team, and I'm like, oh, he sent that the wrong person. Because I guess I just didn't.
No, dude, I was blown away from it, man. The whole deal has been, it's been incredible, and I just want to acknowledge that we, Mike and I, JT, we go out to the races, we go to these trade shows, and we get love, and we appreciate it. It means a lot to us. Like, we get a lot of love, but it has to be said that we don't get any love. We don't get a single high five or a pat on the back if it isn't for you guys. If y'all don't show up and watch this show and click share and click like and participate, that's the feedback we get from sponsors, is people notice the engagement right? Like they're going, hey man, Big Chief's in there, Scott Palmer's in there,
Right,
Clay
yeah.
Millican's in there, and everybody's arguing and debating. Arguing's not the right word.
A co-host at this point for the
Who's
past
that?
couple of weeks. Clay.
Clay, yeah.
I think
But I mean,
Clay's
did you
gonna send
ever
us an
think-
invoice. Clay's
Did you-
gonna. We got to get a 1099 from Clay.
Did you ever think, though, honestly, that you'd see the day that Clay Millican, I mean, this is one of the best to ever do it, right? I mean, one of the best drag racers of all time, most
He's such a
celebrated
good
drag
guy.
racers of all time.
Prefers
And-
the air closer to 72, 73 than
Yeah.
67.
We froze. You guys froze him out.
I thought we were going to kill him. I didn't realize it because I get so revved up. Like I've already sweat through my
Me
shirt,
too.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I get so amped up about this stuff. And I looked over at Clay last Wednesday and this dude's got goosebumps. He makes my goosebumps look bad. Like his goosebumps like had goosebumps and he was shivering. And I'm like, oh shit, Clay's cold.
Yeah.
We need to turn, but I
he's
did have
cold.
the air. I think I had the air on 64.
Yeah, it was pretty cold.
It was
You were
pretty cold.
testing the renovations, the new AC system.
I was. I'm
at
probably
Texas
going to get an
Motorplex.
invoice from Billy
Yeah.
Meyer. Like,
Billy-
hey, who is running the air?
Billy might have been like in dad mode, walking around and checking all the thermostats, turning them back up, making sure that you hadn't cranked them all down.
It's so funny.
I met Clay at I think it was SEMA. It was SEMA or PRI. Anyway, I met him out there years ago, and it was the first time, or it was at like a Weld Wheels booth, I think. And he comes over, talks to me for a little bit, and from that day, he has called me by name, and we'll just run up to you and start talking to you. But since that day, every time I've seen him, and just nice can be every time. Oh, big
Clay's
smile
the
on his
man.
face.
What do I
mean,
tell you guys
it's
about
awesome.
consistency? I preach it all the time. Like anybody who's ever worked with me, around me, knows that I preach consistency. I think it's so important for people to know what to expect, right? When they're dealing with you, whether it's in business or life or whatever. And Clay is a picture of consistency. He's never going to treat you bad, no matter what's going on in his personal life, no matter what he's dealing with at the racetrack. He's never going to alter who he is as a human being. And I think that's rare air in this day and age, man. Everybody's got a reason to be mad. It's easy, right? It's easy to be bent out of shape in this day and age, right? I mean, we've got stuff coming at us 24/7. So if you want to be mad, man, you can certainly find a reason to be mad, but it's the people that are able to rise above that I just have a lot of admiration for. I aspire to be that person myself. I try every single day. I don't ever want anyone to wonder how Wes is going to treat him or how Wes is going to act or whatever. And it's, man, I have a ton of respect for it. And to think about the fact that, I mean, he's been on the show with us like a ton lately, right? I mean, he was on the show for like an hour last Wednesday. I do want to...
I think he's the only person on the internet more than you are.
Perhaps, you know,
Maybe.
I mean, he does a great job. His show
He
that he does, I didn't realize that he didn't do his show during the race season. I'm going to rattle his cage about that a little bit because I think he should. I mean, I understand traveling and whatnot can add some wrinkles to it and make it difficult. We actually experienced that today, right? I mean, I was scrambling around, as I would say, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get all this stuff lugged out of my truck that we had set up at the Motorplex last week back put in place here. But it's important to engage people and to stay in front of folks all the time or as often as possible. It's a difference maker. It really, really is. Thank you guys. Reaction Time Media. I believe that's Brett and Nicole Hoare right there. You guys are doing an awesome job. Thank you so much, man. And I would remind everybody, please click like, click share, help us spread the message. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't already followed the Drag Illustrated Facebook page, please do so. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're blessed. It's growing rapidly. Couldn't be more excited about that. Experienced a lot of growth Monday night while we introduced a fresh new piece of content straight out of the oven from the content team at Drag Illustrated, the DI Ride Along, where we are going to enjoy, along with all of y'all, every Monday night, the season 4 action of No Prep Kings, Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings. That was a ton of fun, joined by Doug Cook, Jeff Lutz, Clay Millican. Literally watched TV as a group for 2.5 hours and shot the shit.
That was fun, man. I think it was well received. I think everyone enjoyed that. So join us next week.
No, look forward to it. Mark your calendars. Wednesday night, I believe we will be going live at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. But we got a lot of drag racing to cover. So first and foremost, it would be criminal not to talk about the Texas Fall Nationals, and really more so than the race itself, guys, the Texas Stampede of Speed. I just want to start there for the uninformed or those that haven't been paying attention. Basically, along with a little bit of help and a whole lot of vision from Billy and Christy Meyer, the owners of Texas Motorplex, they put together an incredible 9-day, over a week-long event, basically a festival of ranging from bucking Broncos and country music programs to a lantern release. We had the Nitro Sideshow on Monday night. We had a 25,000 win Pro Mod shootout on Tuesday. We also had the NHRA Fall Nationals. We had an incredible show on Friday night, some great racing, more qualifying, of course, on Saturday, and some great racing on Sunday afternoon. A real, in my opinion, feather in the cap, personally, of the sport of drag racing. I'm curious, Mike, you were there for half the week. Looking back, I wish I would have made you stay the whole time.
Man, I was worn out.
It was a lot, man.
Before the race even started, I was worn out. That deal, anybody that was there for the full time, had my hats off to you. Probably needed a few 5-hour energies after that deal.
It was a lot, but I'll tell you, it was unique.
Sponsor. Call 5-hour energy. See if we can get them on here.
We need to get them on here. We need an energy drink, I think, pretty badly. That's going to have to happen. But my overall takeaway, and this has been interesting because it's been polarizing, right? It seems like there was a ton of positive feedback for that event, but an equal amount, maybe not equal. I'm not going to say equal. I think that's an unfair statement, but a good amount of people that were kind of pushing back on what was, undoubtedly a much different looking NHRA national event.
Yeah.
We
talked about that. I mean, we talked about it, that you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way, because I feel like that they set the bar pretty high, but you've got to get the ball rolling somewhere. You've got to get that snowball rolling, and it's going to turn. They'll adjust, they'll change things, but you've got to be willing to take that first step. And that's what I think that the problem has been all along, is that no one wants to put themselves out there, and it may not work. It may look great on paper, but try it. You're never going to know unless you try it. So these racers love to test, right? We got to give these.
I completely smoked that part. I completely overlooked that. I mean, for those that don't know, the Texas Stampede of Speed included a full day of professional testing, which was something completely unheard of in drag racing, by and large, right? I mean, it's something that typically does not happen at all, but it was well received, I think, by and large, by the race teams, right? The opportunity. And I think an argument can be made that you're going to have a better show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, giving these guys the opportunity to test at no additional cost. It was for me, I thought it was a cool thing. It was a cool thing to see. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, the lower budget teams don't have the resources to go test, right? They can't rent a track and do everything that is required to go test somewhere unless a large group of teams are testing, which is something that doesn't seem to happen very often with the NHRA Pro category, specifically nitro cars.
But so I thought it was a cool deal. That we've got to give these tracks and these promoters tests, give them a chance to try something. Right. It may not work, but let's try it. I didn't feel like anything didn't work at this event. And I think if you were disappointed in any way, you weren't there, or you maybe misunderstood the intent of it. I kind of feel like it was for the racers. It was for the people, almost for the people that were going to be there anyway.
You're talking about all the early events.
All the early events, all the testing, all the grudge stuff. It was almost, hey, if you're coming to the race this weekend, coming to the national event, come in a few days early and check out all this other stuff we've got going on. I don't think the intent was to pack the bleachers, to have a live feed, to do all the normal, to measure it by all the normal measuring sticks that we have for an event. I think it has to be measured differently. And by my measure, I feel like it was very successful, and I hope we see it again. I think everyone we talked to at the Motorplex, the Myers, Elon Warner, indicated that this is a multi-year plan. So I'm excited about that, and I want to see other tracks try to take their swing at it too. Like we talked about a few weeks ago, I like that it was Texas themed. That it was, it everything about it was Texas branded. I would like to see another track in another part of the country embrace the local culture where that track is located and do something similar.
I mean, everything you do, the first time you do it, you're going to suck at it or be mediocre.
There's going to be room for improvement.
And then the next time you do it, you get better. I mean, that's why you practice. That's why you hold events. Look at the first show that we did here. I mean, it was a freaking cell phone taped to it.
Right.
Some huge prop book looking thing. I mean, it really was. It was duct taped to it. I mean, just you got to do things and try them to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then you prove from there. I mean, that's with everything in life.
I think we all want to skip to Z. We want to forego A, B, C, D, E, F,
That'd be
G,
nice,
H,
wouldn't
I,
it?
J, right? We all want to skip to the end. We all want to press that fast forward button. And it's just an unrealistic expectation. And I honestly think there's always going to be room for improvement. I think, Andy Carter, Billy Meyer, Christy Meyer, that whole team there, Elon Warner, everybody that was involved with that event, I'm sure they're looking at it with a really critical eye right now going, okay, where'd we nail it? Where did we miss the mark a little bit? Where are there places that we could improve or maybe change? Or what's some of the things that bombed? I honestly think, to your point, Mike, I was really surprised. Like when we posted up the video of the Studezilla pass or whatever it was on our YouTube channel Monday night, I couldn't believe all the comments like, oh, there's nobody there. There's no people in the stands. And it's like, guys, that's not even what the goal was. The pass fail wasn't packing this place out on Monday. And you also have to be realistic, because do you really anticipate being able to pack this place Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I mean, that's
it just doesn't work that way.
Crazy expectation. And those other things, they're for the hardcores, to your point earlier, Mike, the people that are already there, the local crowd, things like that. And personally, I've had calls and texts, emails from people around the country and around the world who said, man, I will be there next year. Like I was so excited. I almost booked a plane ticket.
Outside looking in, it looked awesome. Like,
the deal Friday night was awesome.
You said I had FOMO,
Yeah. The deal Friday night was awesome. You and Al on the mic was a great part of that. But also just the production value was actually higher on NHRA TV. Or NHRA.TV. I don't know if you guys subscribe to that and watch it. I don't even watch the Fox broadcast most times, to be honest with you, because I just have NHRA.TV on for most of the weekend. My wife absolutely loves it. And I just take over the TV with NHRA.TV on all day. And she's like, contemplating, I don't want to,
get another TV.
Yeah, get another TV, get out of the room. But, anyway, the production value was higher, and I also the excitement from the racers getting on and off that the saddle or the mechanical bull,
phenomenal.
Whatever that deal was, and almost bantering around with the check as it changed hands for the low qualifier, to just see some smiles, some energy, some excitement on a Friday night, the lights, the smoke show, the whole deal. I know they had some trouble with oil downs and with some delays and stuff, but you're going to get that. I mean, you could have gotten that at the most run-of-the-mill event of the season. And then we had Brittany Force go out and lay down what I think, what was it? A thunderous,
it's like the second or third quickest run in the history of Top Fuel, a 363 at 335 plus. I mean, the show Friday night, from my perspective, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, obviously the oil downs didn't help anything, but who had a really great perspective on it was Joe Costello. Shout out to WFO Joe, who I really think is a huge shining star over in the NHRA world. Maybe doesn't get the credit that he probably deserves, to be honest. And I hope that he gets more and more and more opportunities to be on camera, because he's got great enthusiasm, great energy, a unique perspective, in my opinion, a different voice that cuts through in a lot of ways. But he came up to the tower after the fact, and I said, man, those oil downs and stuff, they just really killed us, huh? And he goes, well, yeah, but the fans here got to see a John Force fireball of epic proportion, right? Like, we haven't seen a funny car fire like that in a while. They got to see one of the craziest, like, well down track engine explosions that they'll probably ever see. And he goes, so I understand that it derailed the program, but don't think there's not entertainment value, that can stem from those moments, because it's funny. And I didn't think about it like that. I go, you know what? You're right, Joe. What a great perspective, because, I mean, even for me being up in the booth on the PA, I'm going, like, it wasn't lost on me that I witnessed, perhaps best seat in the house, a historic John Force fireball moment. Yeah. And obviously we're not trying to celebrate bad things happening, right? But I mean, they're gonna, right? And we were there for it.
I don't know if you guys saw on social, I think it was Courtney Force posted that she hadn't seen her dad in a long-lasting rolling blaze like that since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
So that's how much that hit her, that she had. I mean, John's done it all, right? And we've seen some bad stuff from him. And she hadn't felt that he had been in a situation that bad in a very long time. I kind of had that same feeling as well. Like, wow, that was like a 90s. That was I saw Elvis at 1,000 feet fire in Memphis or whatever. Like that. I mean, not that bad, but it kind of reminded you of that.
It really was.
Also, they had the oil downs and they had the delays, but they did have some unique entertainment. They had the clown and they had the DJ out there to kind of go through some of the.
I want to say this
and stuff. So
real quick,
Laney.
I don't know this young man, the guy that was on the ones and twos down there with the mixing board, playing the music, doing a little bit of talking to the crowd. I had a conversation earlier today about this, that like for me, it was a real proud moment for the sport of drag racing to look down there and have him playing Sweet Caroline and the fans singing along and waving their arms. Then he asked everybody to get their cell phone lighters out, and you're looking out at the stands and you're seeing all these phones with their flashlights on going back and forth. Cool. And I'm like, drag racing needs more of this. I understand it's not for everybody. I get it. And I understand that it's a dramatic departure from what we're used to. But in that moment on Friday night, I think you have the opportunity to kind of get a little loosey-goosey and then intensify as the weekend rolls on, right? I mean, you got Friday night, you can kind of let it all hang out. Saturday, you start to tighten things up. And Sunday, you're at a highly competitive, very serious sports event. And there's obviously still an entertainment factor, but I think using Friday night for this kind of thrill show, one night only, come see it. Like if this is your first exposure to the sport of drag racing, even despite the oil downs and all that, I think you're coming back. I mean, I really do. And I understand there was some like divisive humor. There was some political stuff that I don't think was super well received. But what I saw was these guys know their audience. We're in the heart of Texas here, right?
I thought that same thing.
I mean, would that work in somewhere on the East Coast out in your neck of the woods? Probably not.
Well,
no. Would that work up in the New England colonies? Probably not. Would it work in Pomona? Probably not. But you know what? It worked in Texas. And you mentioned it earlier. I'm excited to see other tracks in our country maybe lean on this playbook and go, you know what? We need to kind of bring out all of our, this is a bad example because there's not a national event in Memphis, but I'm going, a barbecue competition in conjunction with the race, or, some blues festival in conjunction with the race, because I really think the music, if I had to pick one thing that I really liked, it would be kind of a combination of the aluminum scaffolding with the lighting, the fog machine, and the music. Music,
I was going to say, the
make
music
all the
playing
difference.
We did that at our race.
Yeah. Well, they even had it playing during the runs. Sometimes it was a little too loud. Sometimes they had it dialed in just right. And that's another thing. They've got to work, they got to figure out what works, how much on track audio versus how much music. I thought it really added to it.
It's for me, I thought it added to it. I enjoyed being up on the mic Friday night, but I will tell you, man, like I don't fancy myself an announcer, and that was a fill-in opportunity. I mean, they are a fill-in deal. My phone rang, I believe Wednesday morning, and I was told, "Hey, man, could you announce Friday night? We want you to announce with Tucci. Would that be okay? Would you be interested in doing that?" And at first, I was like, I don't know that I want to do that, And then I talked to Al, and Al is one of my closest friends and someone that I genuinely love the guy. I'd do anything for Al Tucci. And he's like, "No, we got to do it. It's got to be me and you together." And I'm like, you know what? Okay, let's do it. That's fine. Yeah, and it was fun. And I admit that like we butchered some names, and I know that I did. And I did say shitter at one point in time over the PA system, which was a little bit embarrassing, but that's harder. That's way harder than people realize. And for all the people that like want to pile on and bag on, I've got a lot of respect for anybody who's ever stepped into that announcer's booth and grabbed a microphone and tried to organize or try to add something to what's going on in front of us. It's not easy. A lot of times the information that's on the computer screen, which is supposed to be your guiding light, right? I mean, there's a computer screen directly to like Al and I's right that is supposed to be our map, right? It tells us who's out there, where they're from, all these different details about them. And half the time it's wrong, or it's, they don't have it queued up on in time. I mean,
it's the first race of the season and they've got all data in or something. I mean, that deal is very, very hard.
So you're reliant.
It's a whole different deal than doing this type of thing.
It is. I mean, and it's not at all like, if looking back, if I had to do that again and I was tasked with, what Andy Carter said to me is, "Hey man," he goes, "I want to slow the show down a little bit. If had we not had those oil downs and whatnot, I believe we would have been done at 9:30, which would have been a home run. Fireworks, music, party in the staging lanes, it'd have been fantastic, right? Unfortunately, we weren't done till 11:30. But if I were to do it all over again, there's some things that I felt like we needed just a touch more choreography, where it's like, I need to know without a shadow of a doubt, like who's up, right? Not like they're going to move it around. I can't wait for the computer screen to tell me, because the girls in the tower, they're having their own troubles, right? They're trying to stay on top of stuff, and we're reliant on them. The announcers at any racetrack are reliant on typically whatever young person is willing to, work for peanuts, generally speaking, typing car numbers into the computer system. And if she gets behind, or if she can't read a number, you're left, the announcers are going, okay, who are these people? I can't see under us. I don't know who's up next, right? So it's a real conundrum. It's a legitimate challenge. And I give a lot of credit to the people that are able to do it well. I mean, it's really, really impressive. But if I had to do it again, I would know the run order, like specifically each pair and each class. And I would have wrote a bit. Like, you guys know that I like to write, and I would have wrote a bit. I would have wrote like a 30, or I wrote like a 75 or 80 word, 30-second bit for everybody that was coming up.
I wouldn't have been able to talk.
Right. Well, no, but I would have given Al one, because, or whatever, if that's what they wanted, you know what I mean? If we were trying to go for something that had a little bit of drama, Andy looked at me and said, man, I want our fans here tonight to leave feeling like they know a little bit more about these people. I don't want to talk about how many championships they've won. I don't want you guys to talk about 60-foot times and all this stuff, which I did a lot because it's just a layup. But he goes, Wes, you know all these guys. Like, if they're a farmer, talk about being a farmer. If they own an HVAC business like Brandon Snyder, talk about it. If they're from a different country, or, an unusual place or something that's unique, talk about that. And that's what we tried to do. Again, I admit that I don't know that I'm not a great announcer, and it's nothing that I fancy myself as being really good at, but it was an incredible opportunity to be there. It's something that I'll never forget. Like, Al and I looked at each other. We both felt it was historic, right? I mean, Friday night at an NHRA national event in the countdown, I mean, that's Alan Reinhardt's house, right? And the fact that we were welcomed in there and we had the opportunity to go let our voices be heard and be a part of what was, in my opinion, a really incredible weekend for the sport of drag racing, I'll never forget it, dude.
That's awesome. Al's in the comments right now.
Yeah, Al's here, I was going to say.
Yeah, it says peanuts.
Hey, there he is, man. I mean, we had a great time, dude. I mean, it really is. And Tucci, I can't say enough about this guy. His energy and his enthusiasm that he brings on a moment's notice is very, very hard to... not many people can do it. You know what I mean? Like, his ability to just get in the moment and get on the rev limiter, I'm blown away by it, man. And I love working with Al. And I just think our sport needs that kind of enthusiasm, right? Because if you just watch it from afar and you're not hyper tuned into what's going on, or you don't know the backstories, or maybe you don't understand or appreciate the mechanics of what's going on out in front of us, you need someone. I mean, it starts at the top. There's a little bit of a trickle down. I mean, it's infectious, that type of energy. And I think the NHRA could use a little bit more of Al from time to time. I really do think so.
Was that Al's first NHRA national event?
I'm actually not sure. I think it was his first time ever. I believe it was his first time ever.
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
It is, but this is a guy who's been announcing for 35 years. Like, I'll watch some old YouTube video of a Pro Mod race or something, and I won't even realize, like, I'll go, is that Al? It is Al. And it's hard to believe, you know what I mean? Because he's been there for so freaking long.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
It was an incredible deal. And we've got a lot to cover. We've been on here for 40 minutes, guys. I do want to remind you that this show, each and every episode of this show, is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. What incredible timing with the TV in the background, bringing up the Stroud logo, the blue and silver and white. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes, seat belts, and fire suits to gloves and blankets, all 100% made in America. Please log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. Guys, it would be criminal not to talk about many of the other things that are going on in the sport of drag racing this weekend. We've got about 20 minutes before we'll be joined by Lyle Barnett. If you don't know Lyle Barnett's story, we're going to get into a little bit of it here today. Crowning achievement, career-defining moment for him this past weekend. But I think we should save some of our NHRA talk for when we get Lyle on here. Let's dive into a little bit. We talked last night on the Cocktails with the Carusos about the PDRA national event. We've covered that heavily. I think we'll touch on it briefly, but it's No Mercy 12 time. I saw Nate Hansen in the comments talk. It's Duck Week, right? Donald Long and his whole game, Duck X Productions, take over South Georgia Motorsports Park. I'm super excited. Our own John Ford III is on his way down there. I think he's going to roll out Friday morning, be there for the whole weekend. Great to have what I believe to be one of the most legendary photographers in the sport of drag racing. And you consider that he's not been doing it for that long. Right? I mean, he started his drag racing photography career about the time we were kicking the doors open at Drag Illustrated 16 years ago. So excited to have
one of the best guys too.
Dude,
consistent. You talk about consistency. Have you ever seen this guy without the big glowing grin and just like he's just happy to be there? Everyone's his friend. There's no curiosity as to why he's so well liked when he gets out there.
He's a superstar, man. I mean, John and I have had this conversation before, and I'm actually really proud of this because I feel Drag Illustrated contributed to building the legend, growing the legend of John Ford III. And I think he was so active on yeah, man. I mean, and he was so active on social media, and you talked about his personality, just infectious, positive energy. I mean, you can't be around John Ford enough. He's always in a great mood. He's always bubbly. And we would have conversations about how, man, when he goes to the racetrack anymore, people know who John Ford is. People seek him out. I mean, he's printing photos and signing them. And I mean, how rare is it for the photographer who took a photo to be signing it? Right? I mean, typically it's the guy who owns the car or was driving the car. That's who's signing it. But John Ford III has arrived at a point in time where he's signing his photos he's taken. And I'm just glad he'll be on the ground at Valdosta, Georgia for the 12th annual running of No Mercy.
As well, when you have people like that showing up, as far as I'm concerned,
I think so.
Like my event's got John Ford here, you know? I mean, it's something to hang your hat on.
And he doesn't go to a ton of events.
He doesn't anymore.
So when he's at your event, it's a big deal.
Yep.
I think so, man, and I'm proud of it. I had this conversation with the guys at Flow Racing. I do want to give a shout out to those guys. Been working a lot with the team at flowracing.com. If you're not a subscriber to their service, I encourage you to do so. Log on to flowracing.com/Drag Illustrated. I'm going to have JT throw that link in the comments. That's our way of making sure they know that we sent you. So if you don't mind, if you're going to join, please use that link, flowracing.com/Drag Illustrated. But I had a conversation with the content team yesterday at Flow Racing, who will be streaming No Mercy 12 on Flow Racing from, I believe they start their broadcast maybe Thursday night. It'll be free on Facebook for a couple of days. And then, of course, you'll transition over to a paid viewership type of situation. But I had a conversation with them, and I think both of you can appreciate this. I don't know that it can be overstated how significant it is, No Mercy 12, right? I mean, because if you think about it, the fact that Donald Long and that group of racers and that whole situation has remained so incredibly relevant for over a decade, that really is that's a rare type of thing. I mean, we've experienced it. I mean, we went into 3 years of the World Series at Pro Mod at Denver, and it's really hard to get to year 4, 5, 6. I mean, we talk about it with the magazine. Issue number 1 really was pretty easy looking back. It was issues 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 that really test you and make you question yourself, and you really have to answer whether or not you want this as bad as you used to, right? And the expectations get higher, the eyeballs increase. I mean, what's your guys' take on, I mean, no matter where you stand on radial tire racing or RVW or Pro 275, or any of these classes, you can't argue the fact that, I mean, we've got people watching the show right now. It's Duck Week. It's Duck Week. I mean, this time of year, 2-3 times a year, without fail, the attention of the drag racing world in large part focuses on Valdosta, Georgia. And to have done that for over a decade, I mean, it's extremely impressive.
It is. I mean, they've what they built over there is, well, it was my favorite thing to watch in drag racing for a long time. You know, I loved it. And, you know, I think it was relatable to a lot of people, especially, 5-10 years ago. You could walk around the track and, hey man, let's build one of these, you know. We talk
you're
about
seeing
that
like
a lot.
back half cars, things like that, right?
But then they just kept going faster all the time. And we were going, oh, are we going to see this? And then next time you're at the track, oh, they already did that. You know, we didn't think we'd see that for another year or two. But it's been really awesome. It's been a great run for them all too. and it's made
It
a lot
really
of
has, man.
stars. Over the
I mean,
years.
Lyle Barnett, who's going to join us shortly, right? I
Yep.
mean, I mean, obviously both triumph and tragedy for Lyle Barnett down there between the guard walls of South Georgia Motorsports Park. But I think of guys like Keith Berry. We got introduced to Keith Berry, this charismatic, wild and crazy character by way of events like Lights Out.
Helped Stevie a bunch.
Absolutely. Stevie Fast Jackson had a ton of momentum and had a big following, but man, he largely became a superstar in Valdosta.
Absolutely.
Dwayne Mills, Mark Mickey, right? I mean, Mark Mickey is someone
Woodruff.
I've been a fan of for as long as I can remember. I mean, I tell this story a lot. Mark Mickey, M&M Transmission, bought the first ever advertisement in Drag Illustrated magazine. Those folks in Jefferson City, Missouri I consider them family. There are some incredible folks, but I mean, Mark Mickey was a big-time Outlaw 10.5 racer. He went and had tremendous success in the NMCA Pro Street Division, but when he became like a household name in the sport of drag racing, it was behind the wheel of Jason Carter's Blue Malibu racing RVW and blowing the scoreboards down in Valdosta. I mean, it was...
And there were so many. I mean, like, there were so many big names at one point, racing Radio versus the World and X275 for that. But, I mean, just you look down pit road at Valdosta, and anybody who was anybody was there. You know, it was nuts at one point.
That was my favorite part about going, and there is a real calamity. During this COVID era, right? During this global pandemic, it's really hard to be mad at anybody because of scheduling situations. We've got a conundrum of scheduling this coming weekend. I mean, we've got the NHRA's return to Thunder Valley. We got the NHRA's return to Bristol. We got No Prep Kings in Dallas. We've got the PDRA World Finals, without question, the biggest event on the PDRA schedule, not just because it's the last one, but it's the Brian Olson Memorial Race. I mean, it's at their home track in Virginia.
And I believe it's actually earlier in the season than it has.
I do think it's earlier in the season.
Race being in early November at some point, or maybe even Halloween weekend. And I think that's actually that race. It's one of those deals where it's like the weather is like right on the verge of turning cold. And it can really either bite you or you can have some just awesome record-breaking performances. So I think the weather's actually looking fantastic for this weekend on the East Coast. So I think they've timed it right to have a real barn burner of an event.
There you go.
Hey man, it's going to be, I think every one of these events that are going on.
Yeah, I don't have a beer to drink.
I don't. I've got some
Not
water,
yet.
sparkling lemon
I will
water.
have.
JT says we can't, or Wes says we can't drink until 2 more hours.
Yeah, we got 2 more hours and then we can start drinking. But seriously, I just think that those guys down there deserve a lot of credit. Listen, no matter how you feel about Donald Long's promotional style, and he's certainly ruffled some feathers, no pun intended, but that was pretty flawless.
That was, I like it.
You know, it was pretty flawless. I mean, events like that, man. I mean, and Keith McGregor, don't forget Funny Car Chaos World Finals this weekend. I mean, just another Chris Graves, Tara Graves, Funny Car Chaos. They've had an incredible 2021. It's amazing what they've done despite of everything that's going on in the country right now, around the world for that matter. But I really do think that we're going to be reminded this weekend. We've seen Donald Long this week talk on social media that this is the biggest No Mercy they've ever had. I haven't seen any of the entry lists. I actually am going to shoot a text. I'm anxious to see
what by what measure is it the largest?
I'm assuming car count. I'm assuming car count.
And do you think you guys, we were talking about RVW and we talked about how that class, just the level of competition and the different things that have happened there. Do you think it's going to be more weighted toward the other classes that have evolved, that have showed more strength in the recent years? It used to be, you know, that RVW just swallowed up everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think these other classes will get a chance to shine. So yeah, I mean,
for me, I would like the story of No Mercy 12 will be, does Pro 275 like officially dethrone Radio versus the World, right? I mean, and I think that's we're on the cusp of that happening. I mean, you see guys like Mark Mickey leaving Radio versus the World, transitioning to Pro 275. You see Mark Woody Woodruff, Arnold, Missouri's own owner and founder of Woody Mart, making the move to Pro 275 as well. The cars, while I admit they're still very exotic and there's a lot of like full blown, you know, race cars. I don't want to use the word pro mod. People get up in arms, but it's not trending the right direction, in my opinion, as far as like the cars that are involved, but there's an inventory there nonetheless, right? There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of cars that are set up to be competitive in that category. I think they're going to steal the show. I'm not sure who all's on the entry list in RVW, but I look for the focus to be on Pro 275 this week.
And I think that all that contributes to our point about the strength of the sport right now. at one point, I think that these events were so big because it was kind of like the one thing that we were latching onto that showed the strength of the sport. We just talked about all these events that are happening this weekend. That's a ton of competition for door slammer racing to go up against. And I know it's all over the country, all different followings and types of cars and types of racing. But how cool is it that we have all of these marquee events this weekend? And we have had for several weekends.
That's where I get a proud papa moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just that when I look around and I see the quality of cars, the volume, how many, like you said, events are going on around the country. And these aren't haphazardly thrown together get-togethers. You know, I mean, these are big time drag races. Racers are doing battle down in Valdosta, Georgia this week and weekend for crazy money, right? I mean, you got guys that haven't been able to race an organized competition for a long time going head to head in funny car chaos. You got the world finals for PDRA, No Prep Kings putting 40 grand up for a bunch of guys who not that long ago were racing in industrial areas, right? Unetched, bare etched concrete, you know, avoiding the police. And it's just to see our sport escalate like it has and to see all these incredible events. I mean, a conversation I had with Jason Dukes, my dear buddy Jason Dukes, shout out to Jason, or earlier this week. He was talking about how there's so many great events. Like, this is the glory days. Like, we are in the good old days right now. Look, you can look back at like the 90s of pro stock, and that was pretty heady times. And like early pro mod was fantastic. And like the height of the ADRL, I'm not discounting any of these incredible things that have happened in moments in time that have happened in the sport of drag racing. But you are wrong if you don't think that these are incredible times we're living in and
how
freaking
spoiled
now.
We are. Flow Racing bring this to us across the globe for $150 a year for a subscription to Flow Racing. All of this group has gotten behind door car racing. So if you love door slammers, I mean, these people are bringing it to you.
It's incredible, man. I'm actually going to do my script read right now. The Wes Buck Show is brought to you by flowracing.com. If you're a drag racer or a drag racing fan, you got to get on board with our friends at Flow Racing, the world leader in sports live streaming. Flow Racing provides unlimited access to drag racing's biggest events, like this coming weekend's No Mercy 12, also the PDRA World Finals, Chris Graves' Funny Car Chaos, Jason Miller's World Cup Finals. It's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Mel Ross Streetcar Super Nationals out in Las Vegas, and much, much more. The coolest part of the whole deal, well, other than being able to watch like live drag racing 24/7 on any device you might have, your desktop, computer, laptop, smartphone, or tablet, or Apple TV, whatever. On top of all of this, and I admit that it's a tad personal for me as someone who eats, sleeps, and breathes and earns their living in the sport of drag racing, Flow Racing is contributing to the sport of drag racing. And I say that it's an authentic endorsement, my friends. These people are contributing to our sport. They're helping event promoters, event organizers around the country make money, put their events in front of more people. They're paying for rights to broadcast these races. It's something that has, outside of the NHRA and IHRA, likely has never, ever happened. The platform provided by Flow Racing is changing drag racing for the better, and there's no limit to the good that they can do here. So log on to flowracing.com today. That's flowracing.com/drag illustrated and join the movement. All right, guys, we've got about 5 minutes before we we bring on our buddy Lyle Barnett. Let's touch briefly a couple of things. NHRA Bristol coming up. We haven't seen the NHRA at Bristol for a hot minute due to COVID and all these things. JT, I know you've never been to Bristol, but man, I think this is going to be a fun race. I mean, I think with the countdown and all these points battles kind of really heating up, there's a lot of intensity in the pits right now. There's a lot of things being discussed. What's your guys' take on the next stop on the NHRA Tour?
Go for it, T.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah,
put him on the spot.
Yeah. Well, I thought T was going to talk about never having been there. Maybe hit you up for a ticket to this weekend's event.
Let me see if I can get you in.
Yeah. Well, check the flights real quick. It's one of those places you have to go. You have to go to Bristol to see these cars, which I kind of hate that Pro Stock's not going to be there because, man, do I love the sound of a Pro Stock car singing through the gears in between in the valley, between the mountains.
It's unique.
That deal is awesome. One of the marquee events on the circuit, another SMI property from Bruton Smith. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad they put this on the schedule this late in the year. I think it's going to be beautiful up there, fall weather. Man, what more can you ask for? Normally this event is in the middle of summer. It's hot, it's muggy, it's kind of awful. Everyone's like, why are we up here on this mountain? But this deal I think is going to be pretty cool this weekend. I'm excited to see how is this we only have 3 events left, right? In the season.
How hard is that to wrap your head around now?
So this is huge. This is huge for points implications for the rest of the year. Obviously, that goes without saying.
I was actually getting ready to pull up the points because that's something that, I mean, maybe we've just not been paying as close of attention or whatever. But I do find myself going like, this is extremely interesting, right? I mean, there's a lot of killer cars kind of in the mix. You know what I mean?
This year has flown by.
It has. How are we down to the last freaking 3 races of the season?
Well, yeah, we were talking about PDRA World Finals. We were talking about, and I was like, man, that usually for me marks that like it's over because that's one of the last events of the season. So for that to be coming up this weekend is kind of bittersweet.
I find it bittersweet as well because honestly, it feels like so many things are just like kind of settling in right now. You know what I mean? It feels like, I mean, even with this show, like, we're just getting our groove on, right? I don't want to stop talking about
there's
racing.
Going to be so much to talk about. And our audience in the comments are really hitting on this. The silly season is kicking into gear.
And I want to
already.
remind everybody, while we are about to be joined by the longtime homie, friend of Drag Illustrated for a hot minute, Lyle Barnett, I want to remind everybody here in a couple of hours, not even that long, we will dive into Drag Illustrated After Hours. It's our loosey-goosey part of the show. We were talking about NHRA leaning into that kind of opportunity with Friday night qualifying. We do the same at the tail end of our show. We take your questions. So, JT, there's been some fantastic ones. I hope you're jotting these down because there's been some great commentary.
We'll touch on all the silly seasons.
Have you gotten every single one written down?
I'm pretty sure. I was busy. News. I was trying to get Lyle his 6-pack of White Claw into the green room. Yeah. But I got that for him. So
he doesn't have a favorite beer. I don't think, does he, guys?
No,
White Claw's
no
not
chance.
Beer, Mike.
No,
not
at all.
Yeah,
but we'll dive into the silly season stuff in the after hours. Lots to talk about there. Big news tomorrow, obviously, that is coming around the corner at a press conference here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
And you're going, right?
I'll be there. And if they'll let me, I'll try to live stream the announcement here on the DI Facebook and or YouTube pages. So we'll talk more about that.
I can't get the points to load. I can't get the points to load on NHRA.com. What it says no standings available. Why is this happening to me? Well, whatever. I was just trying to make a quick reference to whatever. We'll skip it and go straight to the rumor mill stuff. At the end of the show, we're going to talk about this. As is well known, there's obviously a huge announcement coming from Tony Stewart. There's those of us that are involved in the sport and kind of hear about this stuff quite frequently. It's no huge shock to us. I do get a little tired of everybody doing the armchair quarterback, like, oh, old news. Well, yeah, no, duh. Like if you earn your living in drag
cooler
racing,
than you are. I already knew about this.
Yeah, I get so exhausted with that type of stuff because honestly, I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to hear about what Tony Stewart's plans for 2022 are, as this being mentioned in the comments right now. Big news today from Don Schumacher Racing that a legend of our sport, one of the best to ever do it, Tony Schumacher, will be making his return to full-time competition in the Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series next year. What I think. Everybody gets laser focused, but the takeaway from this is there are new people coming to our sport. There are people coming back, right? I mean, we just talked about Camry Caruso.
These people
it's great.
Switching seats. It's like F1. Let's talk about F1, right? Every season, there's only 20 seats, right, in F1, and these guys shuffle around. We're going to see some of that.
I got to watch this F1 show.
Yeah.
I have not watched it yet.
You haven't watched Drive to Succeed or Drive to Win? What's it called, level. Mike? Driven to Win or Drive to Survive.
But there's like 2 different ones, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's just a lot of good news in the sport of drag racing right now. I mean, we're going to touch on some of the issues that our industry is facing here in 2021 and beyond as we head into the future with Dr. Jamie Meyer from PRI in just a minute. But man, it's these are good times for our sport. And I honestly was telling a friend of mine not that long ago, I had a guy ask me like, hey, you ever think we'll see the Sarge back in action? And I said, man, I don't know. I mean, that's probably a year ago that I had this conversation.
Which is like just hard to even say. A guy that
it is
in the 2000s just wrecked the sport, just dominated the run, man. How about the run in Pomona? Like the most iconic run in the history of the sport. perhaps.
I got goosebumps. I mean,
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
say
Jesus.
the run. Shut up. But I mean, if you think about what was required of
Dream
Tony
Jacob.
Schumacher and Alan Johnson for the run, I used to joke that it would be like telling a baseball player that, like, with the bases loaded on with a full count in the ninth inning, that you've got to hit a grand slam, but you've got to hit it between 400 and 425 feet into left field, nowhere else,
further than it's ever been hit.
further
You
than
gotta
it's
set a
ever been
record.
hit. You know, like there will maybe never be another moment like that one. And to see then Alan Johnson rips his shirt off and he's got like I'm covered in goosebumps. It was like one of the greatest moments our sport will ever know. And to think that Tony Schumacher was behind the wheel of that hot rod and he's been out of the seat for a couple of years, that's devastating. It's a tragedy. So to see him coming back, he's a character too. I mean, he's got a strong personality, willing to say his piece, to do the part. He's also a great ambassador for the sport of drag racing. You know, I don't, know obviously all the ins and outs, but I saw him being a great representative for the U.S. Army, right? I mean, he looked the part, kept himself in killer shape, had the flat top, and he was always on the PA and always talking to folks and always doing all the activations. So anyways, I think it's fantastic news. Pro Stock, I think, is going to be exciting. We got Camry Caruso coming in. I mean, there's just a lot of really, really good stuff going on in the sport of drag racing. So as we dive into hour 2 here real quick, I do want to remind you guys, all of our friends and racers here on the Wes Buck Show, that our show is brought to you by our friends at Elite High Performance. Elite HP, the world leader in used race cars, racing engines, parts, and tools. Located in Fort Worth, Texas, Elite HP is operated by real deal racers who speak the tribal language of drag racing and can steer you in the right direction for all your racing needs. Check out their inventory right now. Log on to their website, elitehp.com. Tell them your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. I was actually just there the other day. They've got race cars stacked like firewood in that joint right now. I mean, whether you're trying to go like bracket racing, street car racing, or you want a turnkey pro mod, they got it. They actually just purchased Mark Caruso's turnkey, bad to the bone, NHRA ready to rock pro mod Camaro. They got a ton of killer stuff in there, and we're going to break down a couple of the hot rods during after hours. But our next guest, ladies and gentlemen, and he's a bit of a regular here on the Wes Buck Show. He's someone we like to talk to. He's someone we like to hear from, but we're bringing him in as a pinch hitter. Mike's out of office or Murder Tundra's out of pocket or whatever, and I bring Lyle in as the word fill-in isn't so nice, but I bring him in to be to help fill a spot on the show, and he does a fantastic job of it. He's a co-host, right? But I tell you what, we've been waiting diligently. We've been patient. We've been waiting because I knew there would be a day that we brought this young man on the show to celebrate his first ever victory in professional drag racing competition. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the hour, the legend himself, I think drag racing's favorite son. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Lyle Barnett. Woo! Lyle, what's up, dude? Thank you so much for taking the time, dude. I think Tom Bogner is in the comments here from Lucas Oil, a dear friend of the show, and he said you made his weekend, and I think I can
made a lot of weekends. Man.
I think Tom's speaking for the whole racing community, Lyle. For those that don't know, I guess if you're living under a rock or you don't have a connection to the World Wide Web, maybe you're not aware that Lyle Barnett drove his Elite Motorsports MacFab sponsored late model Camaro, the car that Erica Enders made famous, setting the NHRA Pro Mod speed record at 261 plus, drove that hot rod to the winner's circle, a twin turbocharged Pro Mod, a combination that people have pretty much left to die, took that thing to the winner's circle and scored his first ever win in E3 Sparkplug's NHRA Pro Modified drag racing competition. Congratulations, Lyle, man. I mean, can you even believe this?
No, thank you guys. I've gotten numerous calls and texts and messages and you name it, and I haven't gotten to all of them yet. I will, but it's the past 48 hours really have been somewhat of a blur. I was telling my dad the other night, I was in my hotel room. We went out to dinner. We leave the track, we go to dinner. We're going to go to the bar, right? We're going to party and we're going to hang out. And I was sitting at dinner and I was just like, dude, I'm going back to the room and I'm going to bed.
Dude, JT
And,
is so disappointed in you right now.
I am.
Oh yeah.
He'll
I'm
coach you up on that.
Yeah. We'll get this
I don't know
worked
where
out.
my Uber Eats driver is, but the White Claws haven't gotten here yet, by the way.
Oh man.
But,
you need a tuner like me for after the run.
Yeah, I agree.
I will get your program. I will get your program back on track.
Yeah. But I turned over in the bed several times throughout the night. Just like, I was like, man, I don't really know if I want to turn over and look on the nightstand, because if it's not there, I'm going to be really disappointed. And I like eased over my shoulder, and I was like, oh, whew, it wasn't a dream. Like we really just did that. But dude, I mean, I was speechless at the top end of the track. I didn't really know.
You weren't speechless. I told
Well,
Wes the
Mike,
first thing, I was
yeah,
like, man, Lyle crushed the top end interview. I mean,
Yeah.
that was awesome. Even Tom Bogner commented in here, your speech was so compelling. And it was, man. The emotion was there, but you were composed like you had done this 100 times. I was so impressed with that.
Yeah, I went through the, in the turbo car, which obviously I counted, that was like 16 or 18 runs in the car that I had made ever. We went to Darlington to test. I made 2 runs, which were aborted. It started raining, completely kiboshed the test session. So we loaded everything in the trailer, wet as you know what. Johnny drives it across the country. We unload in Texas. The first 4 runs there, we abort, figured out what our issue was, made some pretty decent runs, but I hadn't been to the finish line until we were going up for Q1. Like I went 1,000 foot and clicked it off. So Q1, Justin's like, well, out the back door you go. Shook the first 2 runs in qualifying. We're sitting in the 16 spot. Everybody's kind of down. We found some issues, and I went up for Q3 and went 384 with 8. Put us 11th, I think. And by the time the session was over, we were 12th. In Q4, I went 84 with a 0. Set the speed or top speed of the meet, went 252 and some change. Felt good going into race day. Like we weren't the top half, but we weren't on the bump. And felt like we had something that we just needed a little luck here and there, and we could go a few rounds. And obviously a little luck turned into a winner's circle. But when I let go of the button in the final, and it's something I had to get used to, like they jump way out. We go one flat 990 to the 60 foot. Anybody else in the class is going, if they're on a good rip, they go 970 to 960 or faster. So they jump out a car, and from the driver's seat, you're like, geez, man, and the first time I ran somebody side by side and we both made a good lick, they jump way out, and I'm like, what oh my God, that thing, the boost ramp comes in and the thing takes off and it passes them. When I come by them at 1,000 feet, we're moving on pretty good. And I knew when I got to 1,000 feet that it was going to be close, but I felt like I had him. And sure enough, at Texas, just past the finish line, there's 2 wind lights on each wall. They're little blue lights. And dude, I'd already gotten the shootout because I may not have found it otherwise. And when my light came on, I lost it. Like I was bawling in the shutdown. The car's hopping around and doing its thing because it just went 252. But dude, when I turned off the racetrack, I could barely see, and I come to a stop there. And if any of you watching have ever been at a national event, when you come to a stop, it's like a bunch of minions just,
they're on.
They're shoots up, doors open, shoving stuff in the car, and my head is just on the steering wheel, and I'm just limp pretty much, and Amanda's comes over to the car and I get out and I keep my sunglasses in a case Velcroed to the transmission tunnel, and I get them out. She's like, oh no, Lyle, you put those up. And I'm like, not today, so I slid them on and took my time and walked to the back of the car, and Amanda's like, all right, Lyle, 8 seconds and we're live. And I'm like, God, I got to get it together.
Dude, you did it though.
Yeah.
I mean, you pulled the hat on, and I thought, to Mike's point, like you looked so natural in that moment. And I think it was just like, you've waited your whole life to climb out of a car and be handed a Wally. And I looked at your performance, obviously your story, we talked earlier, the triumph and the tragedy that you've experienced at South Georgia Motorsports Park in drag racing in general. It's the fact that you're here with us today doing anything, talking, I feel is a victory. It's a miracle that you're alive. But to think about 5 years ago being on fire in Valdosta, and fighting for your life, and here you are winning at the highest level of drag racing, Lyle. It's and I want to talk about specifically your performance, because you got to tip your hat to Justin Elks and everybody at Modern Racing, Johnny Drama, Anthony, Mike Earl, everybody involved with that Ben, obviously the whole Elite Motorsports gang for their support and everything that they do, the Hairston family. I mean, I understand that there is a ton of praise to go around, Lyle, and I know you're the kind of guy that loves to point the finger at other people in a positive way, like, hey, it wasn't me, it's them, it's all of them. But look at your lights here, buddy. First round 034, second round 036. In the third round against J.R. Gray, who appeared to have the car to beat, you go 007. And I say that because you clearly knew you were going to have to do that. You knew in that semifinal round that it was on Lyle. Like, hey, this car's helped me today, and this car's doing its part, right? But in this moment, when these guys seemingly have the field covered by, like, I don't know, a 10th or whatever, I mean, you were going to have to make the difference, and you did. It's such a special thing. When the moment comes and it's you that has to make the difference, you did it. You did it again in the final round against Justin Bond. Obviously not like a glamour light, but much better than your opponent and what you needed to win. You go 040 in the final. Cars deadly consistent all day. I think you guys could have entered Top Sportsman if you wanted. I mean, what do you make of, I mean, how proud of you or of yourself are you of that performance? And how do you put that together, Lyle? How do you put, I mean, it's not like you've had the season, in my opinion, that would give you the confidence to perform like that in Texas. How did you put that together?
Man, you know, I've always, I guess, prided myself in being able to shine when the odds are stacked against me. I've always been good leaving the starting line, and that dates back to when I first started drag racing, you know, back when we were bracket racing in 7.0 index, and when I first started in X275. I mean, we've talked about this before on this very show. I know I can count on my hands and tell you each time I've been beat on a hole shot. And they never leave me. You know, one of the most painful ones to this day, and like lights out 4, Ron Rhodes beat me on a hole shot in the semifinal of the Leaf Spring Shootout, and I haven't forgotten it. In 2018, Matt Bell beat me on a hole shot in Memphis, Tennessee in LDR, and I haven't forgotten it. And earlier this year, J.R. Gray beat me on a hole shot at the Gator Nationals. And I won't forget. I'll never forget it. And I remember those things, you know. And this weekend, you know, I told Justin and I have had this conversation. I told the guys over the weekend, I said, if I can get a car that can compete, I'll find a way to win. And, you know, I haven't cut as good of lights in that thing as I really want to. And I've shimmed, like, I tune my trans brake button like Justin Else tunes the Motec. Like, I've got shims. I've got things that I do trying to pick it up this weekend. I just couldn't find it. But I did take a pretty aggressive swing going into the semifinal against JR, you know, and Anthony Lum told me in the trailer, he said, I need 4 numbers better than him from you speaking to me, you know. And I'm like, dude,
wow.
I said, look, you guys give me the best package that you can put in that car going to the starting line. And if I red light, I'm sorry, but I'm going straight up after it. You know, like, I've got different ways that I position my hand. And I mean, I've got all these things that I've figured out over the years in ways, if I really need to go after it and know there's a good possibility I'm going to red light, I'll get everything I can get. And 007 was actually a little faster than I was figuring I could be a low teen at best and hoping he was going to go 50. I was 007 and I think he went 40 something. And we got back to the trailer and Anthony's like, well, you gave me 4 numbers, you know? And in the final, you know, Justin Bond and I had a little staging deal up there, and we figure I was probably somewhere in the low 30s to high 20s range. But by the time, you know, we both were in and the lights dropped, that thing was cooking pretty good. And it's also the reason it slowed. We had 30 minutes to turn the car around, and everything was still heat soaked, you know, and so it was, and I needed another 15 to 20 minutes of cool down time to really get that thing right. But man, I don't know. I feel I'm as calm and as comfortable when I turn the top bulb on in a race car as I am sitting here talking to you guys. Like, I know everything that's going on. I can tell Justin what the oil pressure was when I turned the top bulb on. I know how much brake pressure I had when I jammed the brake pedal down to grab the trans brake, which, you know, we preset a brake pressure so that I can bump in consistently every time. But I know how much I started with, you know, and then you know, everything happens kind of naturally from there. I try to roll in an extra few inches so that I only have to bump once. I don't know, man. It's just kind of a natural thing for me to go up there and just be completely calm and aware of what's going on. And I learned some things this weekend driving a turbo car, there's 7 from the time I turn the bottom bulb on, there's 7 seconds until my opponent has to be in, and they're there 7 seconds. They can do with them what they want. I was upset. But as just speaking, matter of fact, Justin Bond staged the car within the rules and did nothing illegal. I may not have liked it, but when he's second in the points and looking and hunting a championship, you got to do what you got to do. And I understand that, and he did what he thought he needed to do, whether he was counting Mississippi's in his head or what. The most important part he just didn't quite get, and fortunately for me, he didn't, and by 9 inches or 2 thousandths at the stripe, I nabbed the first one right here.
I would never in my life want to make light of anybody who's won, the act of winning an NHRA Pro Mod race, right? I mean, I have been saying for years, as have many others, that this is the final frontier for fast door slammer drag racing. That's no discredit to all these other sanctions and series that are fantastic. But I mean, you can ask guys like yourself, Stevie Fast Jackson, any of the guys that have come from other walks of life and dived into competition in NHRA Pro Mod, the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod division. It's unlike racing anywhere else. This is hard knocks racing. And again, I'm not trying, that's not a shot. It's a fact. This is the hardest racing that exists. And like I said, I don't want to discredit any past performances, but I do find it interesting. If you go through the losing reaction times in the first round and the second round, I mean, there are more 020s and 0-teens and 010. I mean, Brandon Snyder lost with an 010 light, right? Jeff Jones, 019, obviously he was, spinning in circles. Jose Gonzalez seemingly goes 020 or better every single time he's in the car. I mean, what do you make of the level of competition? Let's table the performance of these various combinations. Let's table all the drama that exists around turbos and pro chargers and blowers and nitrous, and we can make a song about it. Let's table that. What do you make of the people doing this? Because I think the best drivers that Pro Mod has ever seen are here right now.
I agree. Between myself, Jose is unreal. I mean, for somebody that flies home between rounds of qualifying and then flies back to the racetrack and just hops out, comes running into the staging lanes, hops in his car and did this at Gainesville, hadn't been in the car in like 8 months, is literally shows up at the last minute and hops in the car and is like 18 leaving the starting line. Like, what? But that's how you have to be. Like, I don't, there's been some of your top-notch drivers that I consider have had a kind of an off year, leaving the starting line. Stevie is a good friend of mine. He is, back-to-back champion, but all in all, I think he's had a less than average year leaving the starting line, and it's unfortunately for him, it's bit him some this year. He lost to Jeff Jones on a whole shot in the first round. But to be good, or actually, we talked about this earlier in the year too. You can't be good. You have to be great. And to be great, you have to be better than 30, period. Like, I don't consider my performance on Sunday great. I think it was good, but in the semifinal, that was a pretty, I guess that would be great going 007 when I thought I needed it, but I wasn't happy with myself leaving the starting line. Now we got it. We got what we needed to do and got the job done. But like, that doesn't usually 30, what was it? 34, 32, 36, 40 in the final. That usually doesn't get it done,
Right. I mean, there were odd circumstances there in the final. Not necessarily odd, but to your point, this is cutthroat drag racing. There's no doubt about it. Guys are going to do whatever they've got to do to try to eke by, right? It's close. What do you make of, there's been lots of talk to us a little bit about, while we have time, the transition from the Pro Charger car, which, had the class by the throat throughout all of 2020 and into 2021. obviously a dominant combination. Can you take us through a little bit like the decision to go back to the turbo combination? Because myself included, and along with a lot of other hardcore race fans and industry members, I didn't know that we would ever see those cars back in the mix. I hoped we would. I think the class is better with flat hoods and some turbo cars. I don't want to see all flat hoods and turbo cars, but I do think it adds to the excitement. Can you take us through that decision and I guess like how you feel here and now that you've put one in the winner's circle?
Yeah. We obviously started the year with the Pro Charger car. I've ran the majority of this year in a Pro Charge car. We ran really good early on. And then the NHRA and the NHRA gets bashed a lot for their decision making on the rules package and Pro Modified in particular. And in their defense, they're just doing what they have to do to try and not run the rest of the racers out of the class. They have to somehow they have to maintain parity. And most of the time we don't always agree with that. But we stuck with the Pro Charge combination as long as we could. Proline's got this new MH6 Hemi out that makes just tons of power. With all the things that have gone on with COVID and, getting parts and stuff is a problem. And, we just didn't have the opportunity to obtain the parts to build an engine quite like that. We made good power, but that engine's worth a lot, and so after Charlotte, we qualified down at the bottom 15 or 16 and went out first round. Jake Harrison, who's head of the engine department there at Elite Performance, his dad, Jim, and Jake's brother, Clint, offered up this twin turbo car. Obviously I'm a fan of the turbo stuff. It's kind of my passion. It's really all I've driven for the past 5 or 6 years. But when it was my time to come into Pro Modified, I didn't care what I was driving.
Right.
I just wanted to get in whatever was available. And when they offered it up and Justin, myself, and Anthony and the rest of the guys talked, we thought it was a good option. And Jake, Jim, and Clint just offered their car up. It's the same car, we've talked about it, that Erica set the speed record in a year and a half ago, and it hasn't been ran since then. It got fixed after the fire. We fixed it here at Modern, got it dynoed, put 94 millimeter turbos on it so that they could go run Midwest Pro Mod, and that was just a plan for it. So it got sent back here. We converted it back into NHRA trim in like a week, and we were ready to go. But, it was really just I don't want to say a shot in the dark, but a shot in the dark for us just to try to salvage the rest of the season and see if we couldn't go a couple rounds. Honestly, going to Texas or for the Fall Nationals, it was really just to get our feet wet type deal, get everybody's head wrapped back around the turbo combination. Let me get some passes in the car and kind of get comfortable in it, and then look to try and really perform well at Bristol. And then obviously in Las Vegas, where the air quality and out there really kind of favors the turbo combination. So, it really was a by the seat of the pants one night over dinner and a beer. Hey man, why don't you go try the turbo deal? And we're like, sure. So it just kind of happened. It wasn't something that was in this long plan that we had been planning over the summer. Like literally at dinner, Sunday night at Charlotte, this decision was made. So it really wasn't something we were ready for, and you got to have a little bit of luck out here. You're never going to win every race based purely on performance. And we did have a couple lucky breaks this weekend, and it worked out for us. And to bring the turbo car out for the first time and go straight to the winner's circle, I hope that there are some guys out there with turbo cars that have been kind of iffy about coming back, that gives them some incentive to load their stuff up and maybe come join us before the end of the year, or at least make plans going into 2022 to come join us. Cause I do think that it's good to have that diversity there. You talked about it the other night when we pulled up in the staging lanes for the semifinal, there was a representative from every power adder left,
I think it's magic.
Cool.
That to me, it's good guys, bad guys. I've said this before. It's baby faces and heels. It's black hats and white hats. I don't mean to make all these pro wrestling references. I really don't. But let's be honest. That's a multi-billion-dollar organization, the WWE. They can't be all wrong, So there are things that we can learn from over there, and that's something that I see truly unique to Pro Mod drag racing. If you look at Pro Stock, all the cars are the same. Even the Fords have Chevy engines in them. You know what I'm saying? You look at the same can be said for Top Fuel and Funny Car. All this stuff's extremely similar. And even the bodies are pretty similar, and they all have Hemis in them, whether they're a Ford or a Chevy or whatever. So the unique part of Pro Mod and what I really truly represents lightning in a bottle is all these different combinations and the people that wheel them. It's an incredible thing, and we need to lean into it instead of lean away from it. I think everybody at the beginning of the season thought that Pro Mod, the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod series, was going to be nothing but late model Pro Charged Camaros pretty quickly. Right. But to your point, Lyle, I'm really hoping this inspires some guys to give it a shot. I'm hoping this brings some cars that have been sitting on Pro Jacks for a few months or maybe a year. Maybe it entices them to come back out and try their hand at it. One of the other big takeaways for me, and I understand we had some odd conditions. It was unseasonably warm down here in Texas this time of year. It's always generally pretty nice, which is why I moved here. But it was definitely a little hot and bothered out at the racetrack this past weekend. But I really liked seeing all these mid 580s, right? I mean, and that for me, if there's a big takeaway from the weekend, that's what we need more of. My argument for Pro Modifieds, like staying power and what we can do to preserve the class and improve its longevity and get more cars involved. I don't think we can have them run in 560s. I mean, I know it's cool, and there's a ton of people in the comments right now talking about no rules, and we want to see these things run in 530s and 40s. And listen, I'm not saying that couldn't happen or whatever. That wouldn't be cool, but like, realistically speaking, if you want to keep Pro Mod being Pro Mod as we've known it for the last 10 years, we've got to slow these cars down. And seeing these cars all packed together in that 580 range is very exciting. I mean, it's funny because now I think all the attention turns to nitrous cars going, hey, y'all are running mid 570s and everybody else is running mid 80s, low 80s. I mean, what's up? I mean, and that stuff's always going to exist. I think parity is a bit of an illusion. I don't know that it ever is really going to exist. There's so many factors at play that it's very difficult to make it 100% fair and even for everybody. But how much, I mean, what do you think the elapsed time, the numbers showing up on the scoreboards, how much does that impact the class? I mean, do you agree that the cars get too fast and it just weeds people out rapidly, or do you think they should go faster?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think we should go any faster. We're already going to tracks that are, I guess, what most would consider short, and these things weigh 20, I would say on average, they're somewhere in the 2,700 pound range, plus or minus 50 to 100 pounds or whatever. But there can be a handful to get stopped, and especially if you have a chute malfunction, right? So if you say we're going to go run 550s or 540s, and in the turbo car for me to do that, the thing's got to go to 70, and like, there's some of these tracks that it's hairy enough, and you have one chute come out, or especially no chutes come out, and you got a tore up race car, period. It's going in the sand. Like there's no way around it. You saw Greg Anderson have a chute malfunction this weekend going 210 or a little less and still came off the track running pretty hot. If I have a chute malfunction, even at 250, I'm going in the sandbox, So yeah, I think, the speed numbers you're seeing, Janice and JR Gray went 249 in the Roots car. Ricky's going 250, 251 in the nitrous car. When we get our stuff together, we'll be going more like 255. And I think the mile per hour mixed with some of these elapsed times you're seeing are keeping some of these guys away that would come and play if they were more of a good shot down the racetrack was kind of what we run on average. If number one would have been in the bottom 80s and the class would have stretched down up into the 90s, I think it's more appealing to bring in some regional racers. Your core group's going to go no matter what. When we go to Vegas, the top 10 in points are going to be there, but we're not going to pull in any of those regional guys that would come in that on a good lick could go a bottom 90 or a high 80, which is respectable if the front runners in the class aren't going mid to bottom 70s. There's been talk about this, about should we slow it down? What do we have to do? And it all comes back to what financial investment it takes to do what needs to be done to create the parity, and that's been an issue. We've had meeting after meeting about it. There's been rule changes this year that have cost teams well over $150,000. And, and you start talking about rule changes like that, it scares people away because they go in one direction. If they don't have these huge or maybe even unlimited budgets, if you're not the Bahrain 1 team, there's nothing against those guys, but if you're not that team that has all these resources and you go in one direction to build your combination, and then somebody with the same combination who has been testing or has been running it for months on end goes out and hits a home run. They can't make a rule change that only affects Jose Gonzalez. They make a rule change that affects the Pro Charger combination across the board. Well, the guy that was running 590s is now running 6.0 or 6.10 or whatever to back Jose up to run 680s, or 580s, so it's a rock and a hard place.
It's very tough. I never ever, like Lonnie Grimm and all these guys, John Sears, all these people that I've made friends with that are involved in making rules, like I question their sanity. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you just should do anything else. Like, I love them to death, but like, man, it's such a difficult position. When you look at a couple of kind of closing questions for you, Lyle, one, how set up are you guys to win out? I mean, like, you got to feel good right now. I mean, did you guys have a team meeting and say, hey, listen, this may be our moment? Like, we're headed into 2 tracks that are, historically pretty favorable for turbo cars, right? We're going to Bristol this weekend, then headed out to Vegas. These are 2 tracks. I mean, specifically Vegas. I mean, it's 5,000 feet out there of adjusted altitude. I mean, do you guys feel like you're poised to really throw a wrench in the gears?
Yeah. We talked about it in the trailer after the final on Sunday. We are in a position right now to really shake it up at the top of the points leaderboard, and I've got a chance to make my way into the top 5 and end the season on a high note. You kind of try to stay humble about it a little bit, because you go up there with your chest stuck out and you roll up there for first round and somebody cuts your head off, there at the starting line, and you lose first round because you go up there cocky, and it doesn't look too good. But yeah, I mean, I think with the way we ran over the weekend, we didn't hurt anything. We ran the car good. We ran the car hard. We think we've got some left, but like you said, we're going into these tracks that traditionally favor the turbo combination. So yeah, we feel good, and we feel a little bit confident that we're going to have what it takes to be there on Sunday and hoist another Wally. I would love to win them all. I was telling Justin and Anthony, I'm hungry, man. I want it so bad. They say there's nothing like winning your first one, but they all feel pretty good. And I want to know what it feels like to win the second one. And I definitely want to know what it feels like to win the third one. If we can back it in 2021, I think going into 2022, we'll have a pretty big target on our back, so that's the plan. We're going to go there with a tune-up that hopefully can put us somewhere atop the leaderboard. The weather's not looking too good for Saturday this week, so it's another one of those deals where you're going to see some chess being played on Friday. I know what our plan is, but you're probably not going to see anybody go up there and try to hit a home run on Friday afternoon, because just like when we were in Indy, we went into E1 with 1 qualifying shot under our belt, and it completely shook the qualifying ladder up, or the E1 ladder up. I mean, across the board, Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle, us, everybody there were weird people all over the place, So it's going to be interesting, man. And I'm hopeful, but at the same time, trying to stay a little bit humble about it, because it is tough out here. And if you go up there shaking the big stick, sometimes it doesn't work out too well.
Well, I'm curious, kind of one last thing. This weekend, as you well know, we've discussed you're headed to NHRA Thunder Valley. We're headed to Bristol for the NHRA national event. But how about Donald Long, No Mercy 12 going on this weekend? You got PDRA going on this weekend. There's a lot of incredible drag racing happening. No Prep Kings, which you've won 2 small tire events this year in No Prep Kings competition. I mean, when you look around the sport, there's a lot of exciting things going on. What do you think will be the story coming out of No Mercy 12 this weekend? Earlier in the show, we talked about maybe this is Pro 275's weekend to kind of leapfrog officially radial versus the world. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Pro 275 is going to do that anyway. I just unfortunately, because I love radial racing, it's where I came from. I'll always support it as long as it's around. But, I think you're going to see some first time winners, especially in radial versus the world, with PDRA running the world finals, NHRA taking some of your front runners, away. No Prep Kings is going to have, between those 3 alone, some of the tuning talent is going to be off the property, so I think you're going to see some first time winners, or at least I hope so. Some of the names like Norman Bryson, they're due, and not because the competition is going to be less, but I just think it's his time, but for Pro 275, I think they may have double the cars that Radial versus the World does. And I agree. I think this may be one of those turning points in the long life that this radial racing has lived, where Pro 275 takes over, and I think more of your X275 and limited drag radio are going to be on the headline. It's going to be interesting. It's probably a little bit weird, I guess. It's going to be really hard, especially for you guys to cover all this. Like,
oh man, we've got people headed every different direction. They're going to break me. I've got to pay for so many flights this week. It's unbelievable, man. But hey, Lyle, thank you so much. It was great to see you this past weekend. Great to spend a little bit of time with you through the week. Thank you for taking some time on your Wednesday afternoon to talk about your successes on the racetrack. I'm curious, can we get you locked in next Monday night to be part of the Drag Illustrated ride along as we take in No Prep Kings Season 4? Can we get you on the show Monday night?
Absolutely. And I hope that I'm sitting double fisting with one more of these guys beside me over here. And if that's the case, I may not look my best. I may have my best JT Sunday morning look on the show for the ride along. But yes, lock me in. I'm there.
Fantastic, man. Well, thank you so much. What a deal. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike, JT, everybody give it up for the man himself, Lyle Barnett. Woo! Yeah. Somebody's got to get me, JT, you got to get me I need like a drum roll thingy, or I need
we're going to have to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get it, man. Well, hey, Lyle, thanks for being here, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lyle.
Thanks, Lyle. Congratulations.
I tell you what, guys, we have this has been fantastic, right? We're an hour and a half in, midway through our second hour of the Wes Buck Show here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel and Drag Illustrated Facebook page. I do want to remind everybody, thank you guys so much. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I speak for Mike, JT. We can't do this without you. Your engagement, your comments, it's fantastic. Watching these, honestly, it makes it hard because the comments sometimes are so good that I'll like kind of wander off and kind of get off course.
It does,
right?
Yeah. It's really easy to do.
It's really easy to do, but thank you. Your participation, as we've said ad nausea, it's like oxygen to us. It means so much, and it really means a lot to me as we bring on and prepare for our next guest here on the Wes Buck Show. I do want to remind you that this show is brought to you by our friends at Stroud Safety, our friends at Flow Racing, and of course, Elite HP, some incredible partners we have right here, and they make this possible for us. So remember, support the folks that support us so we can continue to do this. We can find new ways to grow it, put it in front of more people. It means the world to us. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a long time coming. This is a gentleman that I've known for a long time, have an infinite amount of respect for. He's someone who has done so much for not only the sport of drag racing, but the automotive aftermarket as a whole. As I said earlier in the show, we are in heady times as far as I'm concerned. We're living in the golden age of car culture and drag racing specifically. We just talked about the laundry list of events that are taking place this very weekend. And it's not just a certain brand of racing, right? We got Streetcar Takeover, Real Deal Street Cars, roll racing and drag racing thriving. We've got Funny Car Chaos Series, bringing alcohol and nostalgia nitro cars out of barns into big-time racing. Donald Long's events down in Valdosta shining brightly. The NHRA having a tremendous run here in 2021 with sellout crowds. The PDRA World Finals this weekend. NMCA just wrapped up an incredible season. There's so many good things going on in the sport of drag racing, and I think that it's fun to talk about, and I want to talk about it with our next guest, but I also want to kind of shine a light on some of the issues that exist in our industry and some of the things that we all need to be aware of and some of the things that we need to maybe be concerned about. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's give it up for the man himself, recently appointed the president. This is fun to say out loud. The president of PRI, the one and only Dr. Jamie Meyer. Woo! What's up?
Hey, what's going on there, Wes?
Not much, buddy. How are you? Thank you so much. I'm sure you've got like really big, important stuff to do, but you're going to jack around with us on a Wednesday afternoon.
It's thank you for the wonderful introduction, first of all. And Mike, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Wes, it's I was thinking about this meeting, and I was like, boy, it's a shame you and I have to do something this formal. We haven't talked in quite a while. And I'm a huge fan of your work and your passion for motorsports, and you and I have done some projects in the past, but thank you. Thank you for what you do. And thanks for all of this, man. I genuinely appreciate you and your team and folks that are telling the story of racing right now. Very important.
Well, thank you. I mean, we don't take it lightly, right? I mean, there was something that happened this past weekend at the Texas Motorplex that I thought was significant when Billy Meyer and the gang at the Texas Motorplex inducted Richard Shute of Auto Imagery, a legendary drag racing photographer, introduced him to their Hall of Fame. And it gives me chills right now. And John Force walked out in front of him and got down on his knees and bowed to him. And I thought that was such a big moment because, not to take credit or want to toot the media's horn, but like their role and our role is significant, and it's oftentimes overlooked. I think it's not maybe appreciated or respected maybe the way that it should be. So seeing Billy Meyer, an icon in our industry, and someone like John Force give credence to this end of the business was really, really a cool thing to see. And your words right here in front of the entire world means more than you'll ever know. I joke with Mike all the time that we used to go to PRI and SEMA and just hope that we would meet somebody that would be nice to us. Like, please, will we bump into someone who will be at least friendly? And to have you here on the show talking shop with us, it's a pinch me moment for us. It really is. And I truly appreciate it, Dr. Meyer. And honestly, we have some new content that we're going to be rolling out in the coming weeks. I would love to bring you back on here for a more kind of uncut, longer form conversation. But we got some like kind of hot topics to touch on here real quick. And I know we have limited time today, so we'll plow through them. First and foremost, and this is something that I'm proud of because we listen to our audience. We have been getting way more, as much feedback and requests to ask someone like you about the situation with companies like PFI, Speed, a lot of these speed shops out on the West Coast, and I guess nationwide, that are kind of getting throttled or kind of having the hammer dropped on them by our government, which is a really, really scary thing to think about. Hot rod shops being penalized by the American government for selling go fast goods. I mean, it's just, growing up the son of a speed shop owner, I can't even fathom my dad getting in trouble for a part that he sold. And I'm just curious. I mean, literally as recently as Monday of this week, I got an email from a longtime viewer that said, when are you guys going to talk about this deal? You can't not talk about this deal. And to be honest, I was saying, hey, the moment just hasn't presented itself. It's not that we're ignoring it. We just wanted to get an expert on the case. First and foremost, could you educate our audience on kind of some of these issues that are going on in the performance aftermarket, and then maybe help us figure out how we can help?
Yeah, and look, first of all, this is critical airtime, right? This, and I know it's important, and it's Wes, it's going to be tough for folks to really tune in and realize what they're hearing, right? And they may have started tuning out. They've heard about the RPM Act, or they've heard about those diesel guys that got in trouble, that type of thing. Look, big picture is that the EPA has been increasing enforcement over the last several years, and SEMA has a very active advocacy side, and SEMA has been working to get the RPM Act passed through Congress and signed into law. And the RPM Act, that's the name of it, but what this bill does is it clarifies the Clean Air Act so that we can legally modify street cars into race cars and continue to do that. And you may, as people hear about that, they might say, well, wait a minute, I modify street cars all the time. The entire industry is built off modified street cars. Like, how can that possibly be something that needs to be clarified? But what we've seen and what I've become acutely aware of over the last couple of years is that the industry we've seen an increased uptick in EPA enforcement of the Clean Air Act. And we think it really got started with Volkswagen, really shined a light on the industry. And then we saw them go after some diesel parts manufacturers. And now you mentioned PFI Speed. That's a shop in Colorado, and they build drag cars. That's probably the easiest way I can tell you. They happen to be Honda powered, but it doesn't matter. They're a race shop, and they got a letter from the EPA, and they asked for some information. The EPA did. PFI complied, and they got a fine for $180,000 for selling 37 Honda devices to tune vehicles. What's unique with the PFI case is that these parts were sold to race cars, and PFI has been able to document 25 of the 37 went to designated race cars. And further, as best we know, PFI hasn't paid the fine, and PFI Speed isn't going to. And they are really putting up, I'll say, the first real fight or the first real challenge to the EPA. Now, there have been multiple companies that have been fined. There have been multiple companies, and when I say multiple, dozens and dozens of companies that have been fined worth millions and millions of dollars. But we're waiting to see what happens with PFI. It will likely go to court. So what people need to know, and I'll back it up, Wes, so that it's so folks can understand this, right, is that we have a governmental agency, the EPA, that is actively going after race shops, actively going after folks that manufacture speed parts, and really are interfering with an American pastime, or the American pastime for this audience and for you and me, Wes. And it's time that we continue this fight. It's time we get everybody together and we get everybody involved. And it's very simple to do something. You can do it right now, and I encourage everybody to get after their representatives weekly. But you can go to saveourracecars.com, saveourracecars.com. And you can quickly, we've made it very simple. You can put in your zip code, and you can send an email to your representatives, both in the Congress and in the Senate. And the letter is already written for you, and it simply says, hey, RPM Act, very important to me. Hit the letter or hit the send button, and your letter goes to your representatives. We've just in the last week, we've started adding the phone number. So now you can call that office, and I greatly encourage you to do that. You're not going to talk to your senator, most likely. You're going to talk to one of their staffers, but it will allow them to know how important this is to you. And Wes, we need to understand, we've had over 1.5 million letters on the RPM Act sent to the representatives this year. The RPM Act has been submitted to the House. It's been submitted to the Senate. It's very bipartisan, and it's in the best shape that the RPM Act campaign has ever been in, with the highest chance we've had to get this thing passed. So we really need that push. We need to get it into committee. We need it to go to vote, and we need to ultimately get the RPM Act passed. That will protect the future of racing, and that is not an exaggeration. Without it, we're going to continue to have this threat. We're going to continue to have race shops be fined and manufacturers put out of business.
I have to be honest that, Dr. Meyer, my blood is boiling. I mean, I think about, I can't, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. Everybody knows me from this show, and I'm over the top and whatnot. But to think about, I mean, and this is one of those things, it reminds me of like when my parents got cancer or whatever. It's like, you think this stuff's never going to happen to you, right? It's never going to happen to me. It's never going to affect me. And most of my car guys, friends and whatnot, I think we kind of behave the same way. Like the government, I mean, we're worried about what our car 60-footed, right? You know, we're worried about other things, that this type of stuff, political happenings, the ramifications of what happens in Washington, D.C. I just don't know that it's on our radar, maybe apparently as much as it should be. And I got to be honest, it's hard for me to even wrap my head around the fact that, man, you would think that there are much greater problems for our nation's government to be focused on than some good old boys and girls going drag racing. And to your point earlier, this sport lives and dies by the grassroots racer, right? I mean, we may have spent our time talking to Lyle Barnett, and we had John Force on here, but like if we get down to brass tacks, like our sport is comprised largely of working men and women who have a hobby that is the sport of drag racing or tinkering on their car. And without, a future for those people, the rest of our community, I mean, the domino effect is terrifying to think about. I'm curious, what's your take in this world we live in? And I don't want to, go too political here, but in this climate, in this world we live in, Dr. Meyer, I mean, are we going to see the RPM Act passed? I mean, when does that happen? Forgive me for not knowing. When does that actually become an opportunity for us to talk about? And, secondly, I mean, what's your take on it right now? Are you feeling good? I mean, you said that it's as good as it's ever been, but are you feeling good?
Yeah, I really do. And remember, Wes, you're asking me to predict Washington, D.C.
You can't do it.
So, and I want to control. That's the natural question, right? When can we get it? The question we need to ask is, what do we need to do to prevent this from ever happening again to this industry? So the RPM Act is the small step, and we can get that, and we can push back on the EPA right now, Wes. Like, if every drag racer picked up the phone and called their representatives right now, we could put an end to this. Like, if we can unite with the circle track and the drifters and the track owners and the sanctioning bodies, right, that is PRI in essence. So I offer you that today, Wes, on how you can take your blood pressure down a little bit, is to get your team, get your community activated and get them contacting their representatives. And we got to keep doing it, because there's thousands of bills submitted every year, Wes. We've got to be on the top 10 or 20 of those, right? And there's all these other issues that are candidly probably more important, but this is our way of life. So if you don't have racing, if I told you right now you could never drag race again because the EPA said so, you'd get very defensive. You'd get very upset. You would do something. That's the situation this industry's in. We just haven't, to your point, Wes, we get distracted, and we forget to make the call. We forget to send a letter, but we really need to do it. The second part of this, Wes, is what happens when we get the RPM Act. The natural question you should ask me is, what's next? Because you feel confident, as I do, in this community being very active and very passionate and ready to fight for what they love. The next thing we need to do is come together as an industry. And that's the offer with the PRI membership. And it's $40 for an individual member. Businesses can also join and get all their employees signed up. And Wes, that's how we start turning the corner and ask more aggressive questions like, hey, people get funding to put football stadiums in cities. Why can't we get funding to build more racetracks? I want us to get on that side of the ledger where we're more offensive. And to do that, Wes, we got to talk about all the great things in racing, right? So we can talk about the technology, how racing has created all of these breakthroughs in technology that go into your daily driven vehicles. That's the easiest way to think about it, Wes. But then think about the people impact, right? And you know this inherently. Think about the people that work around race cars. They're very problem solving oriented. They're engineers, they're mechanics by design. They're great team players. They know how to work under pressure. They know how to work to a deadline. And then start thinking about their kids. Well, wow, we talk about STEM education, right? We think about how we're going to make kids greater. Give them a race car, Wes. You know all the answers to this, but I'm giving you the whole story so that when I walk away after you and I spend a half an hour together, you can say, damn it, we really have to come together as an industry. And I think PRI is the solution to that, Wes.
I have goosebumps. That is normally something that I say, Dr. Meyer, after talking about like a 3-second, pass or whatever. But it's that passion that, first and foremost, we need to have you on camera way more often than you are. You are a very eloquent and passionate speaker. You need to be doing this as much as humanly possible. And I guess if we've got to drive the bus by booking you on this show every other week, by God, we'll do it. But I'm going to tell you, you make a fantastic point. And this is something that drag racing, and I know your scope is much wider than ours, but like even in drag racing, we have struggled through this for many years, and we're facing a little bit of it this very weekend. There's this inherent us versus them dynamic that has been at play in and on probably all of motorsports, but my life experience is in drag racing, and I get frustrated because even here today in the comments, it's like it's Duck Week and we're talking NHRA, what the hell? And it's like, guys, we're all, if you've put a race car, if you've rolled through the water and done a burnout and backed up and pulled a car into the staging beams, you're my kind of guy. I love you. I don't care if it was in a Honda. I don't care if it was in a dragster. I don't care if it was at a bracket race or at a radial tire race. I don't care if the track's prepped or not. You're my kind of guy. I love you and I care about you. And that's something that I wish, and I actually applaud what you guys are doing at PRI, because this membership could be a step towards that unification that we so badly need. I mean, our sport has been bastardized for years, right? I mean, if my car doesn't fit the rules, I'm going to go start my own thing where my car fits the rules, or I'm going to go convince some track operator to build a class around my car. And it's just that mindset is, I mean, I'm sure there have been moments where it has served us well, Dr. Meyer, but I also think that there's an infinite, I mean, I can come up with a whole lot of examples where it's really hurt us and held us back, because what's good for drag radial is good for bracket racing. I mean, I see these guys racing for $1 million at these bracket races, and, you know, a lot of the things that are happening in big money bracket racing have a massively positive effect on, or are kind of steering the ship or influencing these other sanctions and series. And I think it perhaps exists nowhere more so than with the NHRA. I mean, they're seen as like the man, right? It's everybody against the NHRA. It's like drag racing's pastime to get together and bash on the NHRA, but it can't be overstated what they've done for our sport for 70 years. I mean, they are the guiding light for us. And I do hope that by way of this PRI membership program, you will start the process of unifying car guys, unifying racers, and recognizing that together we can do something very significant. Like, I don't want to hear this again. I don't want to have this conversation again. And I mean, I see people piling into the comments right now. Like, let's do it. I mean, last year we had 3.5 million people watch this show over the course of a year, right? I mean, if we can't, I mean, obviously aren't all of them hot rod people or car culture people, but if a percentage of those people would take action right now, here today, we can make a difference, a measurable difference, something that we can feel very good about, feel proud of. And I'm just excited to have the opportunity, because these are those moments in time that we'll look back at when we're much older and grayer than we already are. You know, we will look back at this as, I think, a proud moment where the sport of drag racing does what they always did. They solved problems. They pushed the envelope. They took matters into their own hands. And I'm actually genuinely excited, as troubled as I am, Dr. Meyer, by this situation. I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth or whatever, but I hope you recognize this as an opportunity for you to leave your mark on an industry that you've been a part of for a really, really, really long time. I mean, I'm excited. Like, let's fight. Let's have this fight. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, thank you. This is exactly the right attitude, Wes. You know, and you're a leader in this space as well, right? And I'll give you an example of where we're headed. Right? We went to the largest tractor pull in the world, Pull Town, and we ran into the guys from Cali's, and we did an interview with a PRI Road Tour, and they took us through the facility, and they talked about, hey, if we don't get the RPM Act passed, if we don't protect the parts that Cali's makes, and I think I have the number right, but I believe they employ 150 people in their small town in Ohio. Wow. And they said, look, if we go out of business, the town is out of business. So you got to realize this isn't just a small business, guys. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry that creates great people and makes us passionate members of society to do the right thing and build things for the rest of our lives. And the Cali's guys introduced me to Donald Long, which is very weird when I finally talked to them last Friday, because it seems like we would have done business before. But we're there as a representative of Save Our Race Cars, and working with Donald, he put PRI on the Magic 8 race this weekend. So you'll see the PRI Road Tour team there. You'll see us talking about membership. And Donald Long is a disciple now. He realizes that if he doesn't get involved, if he doesn't become a political leader in this community, that he's not going to have races anymore because no one's going to be able to build cars because all the manufacturers are out of business because of the EPA. And again, I need you to emphasize this in this community. It's happening right now, Wes. This is happening right now, and we got to push back right now.
I mean, if I think about someone like PFI Speed, and I don't know these men and women, I've followed them on Facebook on YouTube. They actually do a really great job. Like, that's a really well promoted, great content team. They do a great job. But I take these things so personally, coming from, I'm the son of an auto repair shop owner, a speed shop owner. And it's such a personal thing to think about. If my dad, small business owners in America have enough problems, right? I mean, we have enough battles to fight here in 2021. To add that to the list, or to think about someone that is in our industry getting a bill, getting a fine from the government, from the EPA, it's painfully unsettling, and we won't stand for it. And I hope everybody that's watching today or that supports what we do, I hope you'll take action with us. I'm going to labor over this. We will find a way to make this happen because it's massively important. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with a friend talking about when these racetracks close. The economic impact. I mean, most of those cars end up getting sold for bass boats. Those guys aren't going to drive 3 hours. I mean, if they're not going to go to a new track, they're just going to hang it up, right? I mean, they're not going to buy spark plugs anymore. They're not going to buy tires from Mickey Thompson anymore. They're going to, not to mention all the local businesses, the restaurants, all these places and the hotels that gas stations, right? That benefit so greatly from bringing an event like that to town. To think about those tracks closing because of situations such as this, it's painful at the bare minimum, Dr. Meyer, and I truly appreciate you helping us shine a light on it. And I want to tell you, I'd like for you to enlist us. We need to hang this show up today or sometime in the very near future. Get together. I'll fly to you or wherever. Let's get together and put our heads together and find a way to use this platform that we have, that we're very proud of and we're blessed to have. But we see this show every Wednesday and the things we do. This is our responsibility. This is an industry and a group of people that we love and we care immensely about, and we will fight to protect them. We will fight to give them more. We will fight to preserve their right to go race, and we will fight to make sure they can race for a long, long time in the future. I think it would be, I know we're running toward the end of our time with you, Dr. Meyer. And again, I do want to do this again in a different atmosphere where we have a little bit more time. But could you give us a little bit of an update on the 2021 PRI show and what we have to look forward to? Of course, we're super excited because we're going to throw a party to best all parties on Thursday night when the show opens. But I am curious, just kind of your take, and maybe take us through a little bit of the challenges. I mean, I can't imagine what you guys have faced trying to put this deal together in 2021.
Yeah, well, thank you. And look, I will absolutely take you up on your offer, and we're going to work closer together, and you are going to be a big part of getting the RPM Act passed. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about the PRI show. It's in December in Indianapolis, December 9 through 11, and you're all invited. It's an industry trade show, but racers are the buyers. They are our attendees, and the manufacturers know that. We have over 900 manufacturers, exhibitors signed up, and it's going to be a great show. It starts with Indianapolis, our host city. They have been incredible working through the pandemic. You'll remember they hosted the entire March Madness tournament. I was there for the crazy Gonzaga UCLA game, but it was a great event, followed by the Indy 500 in May. And they've had a series of trade shows. In fact, FFA is there in the next couple of weeks with over 50,000 people in the convention center. So they are holding events, and folks are enjoying themselves and learning a lot. And PRI is going to be the same way. We've got big surprises for our opening ceremony at our opening breakfast. I know folks look toward that every Thursday morning as the show kicks off. That press release will be out soon, a big guest. And then we've got a lot of new activities. We've got a new electrified racing area, we've had so many people interested in showing off their electric-powered race cars that we're actually finding more space for them. Wes, we had an area called the Content Creation Center, It's a brainchild from the PRI Road Tour. Back to one of your earlier comments, we're looking to educate everybody involved with telling the story of racing. So if you're a content creator that works for Chevrolet, or if you're a content creator that works for a small machine shop, we've got an area with all the tools, and then we're bringing in experts to teach you how to use them and elevate the entire story of racing. I want racing to compete with the NBA, with NFL, with Netflix, with the biggest industries out there. And the only way we can do that, Wes, is to tell our story better. So we've got a very impressive group of people coming in to help you do that better. We've got the Road Tour content, which they've been traveling the country. When PRI was canceled last year, when we made that tough decision, we put PRI on the road. The Road Tour went to over 100 manufacturers in 77 straight days. And then we've continued having them out there going to America's greatest races. So you'll be able to see all that content. I hope you're following PRI on your favorite social platform. And then, Wes, I think some of the folks know about but need to be reminded is we have an incredible lineup of educational seminars. I think we're over 30 educational programs that range from how to build a top fuel engine, how to build the greatest cylinder head you've ever seen, all the way up to how do you run the finances of your company, how do you run marketing, everything you could imagine to make you better at the business of racing. So Wes, let's get our schedules aligned so I get some time with you, and then I'm going to need an invite to that Thursday night party. So
it's going to be bananas. It's going to be bananas. I tell you what, it was. It's a really funny story. PRI, for some reason, has always. I don't even really. For me, it's always been unique in that it's this rare opportunity to engage with racers without the pressures of racing, right? I mean, I go to, in 2019, prior to COVID, I was going to 25 plus races a year. And, it was great. And it was obviously very good for our business. And I love going out and being like a man of the people. And I love seeing everybody. But I also, having spent my whole life racing, I recognize that now's not the time, right? I mean, you've got to be there late. You've got to be there early if you want to get any sort of quality time with people, because as I've experienced my entire life, I mean, when we're at the races, we're working. There's a lot to do. I mean, I would get in trouble if I sat down. My dad would swat me or whatever, because it's like, there's something to do. There's wheels to be polished. There's trailer to be cleaned. There's something to do. So I've always recognized that the opportunity to really socialize with racers isn't at the racetrack. And that's why PRI has always been so special to me, is that it's this great opportunity to see all these people that I adore and do it without worrying about the next round of qualifying or who we've got to race in the first round of elimination. So it's special. And I remember going to PRI back when it was in Orlando. Mike was there with me, my beautiful wife. We go there and we're going to go to the PRI. There was a PRI party. I think it was at Howl at the Moon. And we were nobodies. We weren't invited, right? We were trying to buy our way into this deal. I was literally trying to pay off the bouncer to get Mike and I in so we could go in there. And I remember we were standing outside. We couldn't get in. We were kind of we were a little bit disenchanted or whatever. And it's like, we're not one of the cool kids yet. And I looked at Mike and I said, one of these days, brother, we're going to throw our own party. We're going to throw our own party at PRI and everybody's going to be there. And fast forward, 10 years later, we put on our first party. Whenever PRI returned to Indianapolis, we thought this is a great opportunity. It's a new environment. It's a new venue. It's the motorsports capital of the world. Let's kick this thing off right. Everybody's worked their butts off. Anybody who's ever displayed at a trade show knows the grind that it is. I mean, you're lugging boxes around and putting stuff together that's hard to put together. And at the end of Thursday night, I think everybody deserves a cold drink. So we decided to throw our first party after the PRI welcoming reception, which you guys obviously have done a fantastic job with over the years. Our deal's a little bit rowdier, a little looser, a little rough around the edges, admittedly, but it has grown into honestly, it's something that we spend 3 months of our year focused on, because that's how big of a thing it has become for us. We've been blessed in the past several years to have the event sponsored by Dodge. I mean, someone pinch me. I mean, are you serious? Drag Illustrated After Hours powered by Dodge. To say that out loud it's kind of crazy to me still to this day. But in 2019, we welcomed 2,500 plus people through the doors of a nightclub in downtown Indianapolis. And I mean, it was a fire marshal level deal. I mean, it was a real problematic scenario for us because we're looking around like, okay, this is trending towards dangerous really quickly. But it's a C and B scene opportunity. I mean, I've got a picture right behind me on my bookshelf. I think it was the second year of the party when people have kind of caught on like, oh, this is a happening. We got to be there. I look at the door. I'm standing next to like Jeg Coughlin Jr. and, Alan Johnson, Top Fuel Alan Johnson's there. I look at the door and here comes Vic Edelbrock. And I'm like, what planet am I on that Vic Edelbrock's coming to my beer party? I mean, this is the silliest thing, but it has really taken on a life of its own. And I think I've never had the opportunity to say this, and I'm not sure that I ever have, but thank you, because we're quite clearly piggybacking on your event. So thank you and the whole PRI team, because it's not lost on us what you guys do and like I said, the grind that those events are and how hard everyone works. And we really appreciate you and the whole team at PRI getting our community together once a year and letting us be a part of it. Like, we look forward to it every year, and we cannot wait to get back to Indianapolis this December.
Well, I love the pride that's pouring out of you over your party, first of all.
It's fun.
So I love it. But yeah, thank you. It is absolutely about the people, Wes. You can't get it more right. It's where everyone comes together. This is a big family. That's what racing is all about. A couple things this morning. I woke up and, the Canadian border's open again. So to all your Canadian listeners, I can't wait to see it at PRI. We've had a lot of the exhibitors from Canada trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then a lot of the racers, but now they'll be able to come to PRI. It'll be wonderful for them. Very cool. And then, Wes, we had this program, you were a part of it, I believe, but it was this International Media Awards program, and it's evolved this year. So we've got some of the biggest influencers in racing, the Cletuses and the Alex Taylors, and Emily Reeves is going to be there. I love her. She does a great job for racers. It's a great way to enter racing through her programming. But we're going to let those influencers give out the awards this year. So those folks will be able to pick the best part from our feature product showcase. Wes, would you participate in that? Would you guys like to give one of the awards out this year at PRI?
Am I being formally invited right now?
I would like to formally invite you to be one of my influencers.
Lock it in, brother. Lock it in. We'll be there with bells on. You just text me a location. I'm your Huckleberry.
All right. I'm sure you'll be hearing from my communications team. They're thrilled to have you on board.
Well, thank you very much. And to be mentioned alongside those people, I can't tell you how much it means to me and everybody at Drag Illustrated. This is a labor of love for us. We've dedicated 16 years to getting to this point, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you, Dr. Meyer. And make sure, let's give a shout out to Juan Torres. He put this together. I think he's an unsung hero in your camp, a great human being that really cares about this stuff. So thank you for your time. Thanks to Juan. Thanks to everybody at PRI and SEMA. And let's talk really, really, really soon, Dr. Meyer.
Thank you, Wes. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, brother. We'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Holy crap. I think this has been the greatest show we've ever had. How do we keep JT, Mike, come back and see me? Are you guys paying attention to what's happening here?
Yeah,
that's Dr. Jamie Meyer.
Congratulations, man.
Hey, thanks, dude.
But now we've got another assignment at PRI, man.
I know our PRI is busy for us, bro.
Hey, but that was awesome. Dr. Meyer, PRI's got some really strong leadership right now. And I think it's awesome for our audience to get to introduce to him. And he's been in this industry for a long time. So super excited to have him. The RPM Act, it's a huge deal. We've got to get behind that. It's a big deal here in North Carolina. Our Senator Richard Burr actually introduced that bill. So especially here in North Carolina, racing is the economy essentially. And so it's something that we're passionate about. And, PRI in general, I think we all think about it as, oh man, that's a cool event. I get to go check out some new stuff, see all my homies, hang out, party a little
Drink
bit
beer,
or a lot if you're JT. But I mean, this event it's also very serious. It's got a very serious side, and it galvanizes the sport. It's not just drag racing. It galvanizes all of motorsports, and we do need to work together and unite and get behind this deal, because it's not about who's in office right now. We can't predict the future of politics in Washington, who's in office now, who's in office in the past or in the future. We need to make sure this is not an issue going forward. because this whole situation with the EPA, they get off on a tangent, get a wild hair or whatever, and this becomes the focus for an administration like that. We've got to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, and these people, I think, oftentimes are looking for a cause to latch onto,
right?
A cause to champion, and we have to shut that down. I mean, we have to pour cold water on that immediately. And we have such an active and engaged community, right? And I think that, to Dr. Meyer's point, something that I'm excited about with the PRI membership, and I think that they're going to have to like put a special onus on this, is what I'm reminded of is like, and I know that not everybody feels this way, and I don't ever want our show to lean too political, but it reminds me of like the NRA. We need a galvanizing force. We need someone to step up to the plate and step into that leadership role and say, hey guys, I get it. We're all different. We come from different walks of life. We have different passions, different opinions, but the fact remains is we all care about drag racing deeply, and we need to work together. So if PRI can become that galvanizing force in our industry and bring people together, I'm all for it. And I hope that we can get people as passionate about it. We've talked about doing some stuff like this at Drag Illustrated, right, guys? I mean, it's been a project we've been working on all year long, which we are going to still move forward with. But, I don't want to disclose too much, but I feel our industry badly needs someone to step into that role and say, let's get together. Let's get on the same page. Let's make a difference. Let's put our own interest aside and focus on what's great for the entire community, and all of our own little offshoots and everything that we're all working on individually. They will benefit from the health and wellness of our industry as a whole.
We've got to support organizations like this and trade shows and events like this. We lost them in 2020. There was a lot of talk. Are we ever going to do trade shows again? Are these a thing of the past? Can Zoom calls replace trade shows? I don't think so. No. We need these. So if
human beings are social creatures,
if it's in your schedule and you can make it happen, be in Indianapolis in December for the PRI show.
I literally look forward to it. And listen, I know we go and have a good time, but this event, and I meant what I said to Dr. Meyer is that, like, it's not lost on me the platform they provide us. Right? To have the opportunity, for those that don't know, and the young lady we're about to be joined by, our dear friend, longtime friend of the show, Camrie Caruso, who's going to, broke some huge news last week about her career. The PRI show has been our platform for our Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30, where for the last 6-7 years, we've highlighted the best and brightest young people the sport has to offer and tried to find a way to highlight them and encourage them. Because as a racer myself and someone who, there wasn't a high school letter jacket for drag racing, right? I mean, there wasn't a varsity letter for working on your dad's race car. And we wanted the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30 to be something like that would celebrate and highlight these young people and encourage them to stay out in the shop and just keep driving all over the country, going to these races, and keep posting videos to their social and keep chasing the drag racing dream, because our sport's rough and tumble. This deal will humble you in a hurry. You're going to lose a lot. It's unlikely you're going to get a sponsor.
And that event also introduces these young and up and coming racers to the business of racing. Dr. Meyer mentioned that a couple of times. We're aware of that in the media, I think, more so than the racers that are, bracket racing on the weekend. But the business of racing, that's a key thing to be learned or to be around. And I love seeing all those young people sort of taking all that in. There's so much to this sport that happens outside the confines of the racetrack every weekend.
It's amazing, man. So, hey, we got to keep on moving. I do want to remind everybody that the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure that you tell them your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been waiting for a minute. She's been patiently waiting for us to bring her on in the green room. I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of involvement, a tiny little bit of involvement in this announcement last week. It's something that I've known was coming for a while, a bit of a difficult secret to keep, because I'm so excited for them and I'm so proud of them. And I'm also just, it's not lost on me what it means to our industry, right? So this young lady has burst onto the scene really a couple of years ago. She made the move from junior dragsters, doing it the right way, went from junior dragsters into top dragster, got her feet wet in top alcohol dragster, actually won a divisional event, a regional race at Summit Raceway Park. in Norwalk, Ohio. Then turned her focus to door slammer racing, dived into the the shark-infested waters of PDRA Pro Outlaw 632, along with her father and grandfather, Mark and Joe. This young lady really did a fantastic job in 2021 racing Pro Outlaw 632 in a car that would clearly set her up for what she announced last Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I've said that a handful of times today, not quite a drinking game, but definitely trending that direction. It's my word of the week. Let's give it up for Camry Caruso. Yay!
Hi, guys.
What's up, Camry?
Hey, Camry, how are you?
Nothing. Good. How are
Oh,
you? Hanging out.
What's up? Oh, nothing.
We talked about this. I think that's going to serve her very well in Pro Stock because you're just calm, cool, and collected at all times.
She doesn't really get revved up unless they double charge her dad for checking into a hotel. Then she gets revved up and yanks computers out of people's hands.
She leaves all that to her dad as far as just getting fired up about everything, right?
Well, for the uninitiated, or unless you've been living under a rock, you likely know that Camry Caruso and family have announced their intentions to compete full time on the Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series. In the Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series Pro Stock division. To the best of our knowledge, and I did attempt to confirm this with both Phil Burgess from National Dragster and Brian Loans from NHRA and Fox, that you are the second ever full-time female driver in Pro Stock history. An incredible thing, a fresh face, talented young lady that I think has an endless amount ahead of you. Did you ever think, Camry, thinking of all that has happened, and a lot's happened in a short amount of time, I mean, did you ever think that you would find yourself in that moment Friday morning about 11 o'clock sitting next to Brian Loans, a very well-known face in our industry, being announced as a full-time Pro Stock driver next season?
I've always dreamed of it, but I didn't really know if it was going to become a reality of how it has. And even when Dad and Papa brought the idea to me, I was like, are you crazy? Like, I don't know that that's possible. So it's definitely been interesting.
But here it is, right? I mean, so a lot of the details have started to circulate, but I want you to kind of take us through some of this. Like, first and foremost, I think it's interesting because almost everybody that's arrived in Pro Stock in recent history has arrived by renting a seat. Right? I mean, you've either joined the KB racing camp, you've joined the Elite Motorsports camp. By and large, that's been the way you did it. That's how you got to the show. Here in 2022, when you guys join the mix, you'll be doing it with your own partnership engine program with Titan Racing Engines out of Denver, North Carolina. I almost said Colorado again. That team, the former Gray Motorsports outfit that powered Tanner Gray to a world championship. You guys are fielding your own team. How excited and proud of that are you? Because, I mean, I'm sure that there's maybe there was a part of you, I don't know, that wanted to do one of these fly in and drive deals. But I'm sure you're for your dad and for your grandpa, Papa Joe. I mean, it's got to be fantastic to know, like, hey, no, we're doing this on our own.
So honestly, I didn't really want to do the fly in and drive thing. Awesome. I would, obviously, if it was given, but I never really wanted to. I kind of wanted to be able to do it our own way and not really have to answer to anybody on how we do things and why we're doing things. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with the fly in and drive. That works for a lot of people, but I wanted to continue to do it with my dad and grandpa our way and not really have anybody have a say on how that works. So I'm excited. I think it's a great opportunity. And I think Papa is probably the most excited of us all.
When you think about it, I mean, we talked about how fiercely competitive Pro Modified has become. And I still believe is for fast door slammer, like for Pro Mod, NHRA Pro Mod is in a league of its own. But for most, even a lot of the people that are competing in Pro Mod would tell you that if they had their druthers, they'd be racing Pro Stock. I mean, it's a driver's category. The cars are extremely. What are you doing?
There's a bug.
You are a mess,
There's
young lady.
Bug, and I can't stand bugs.
How big of a bug?
And it's like gonna go in my backpack.
Are you doing homework? You've been shopping.
No,
You've been to
working.
Target. Oh yeah,
Yes.
Working. How excited are you
the bug's taken care of?
How proud of you, or how excited are you for your dad and for your grandpa? Because I talked to them last week, and thank you guys. We went out to dinner. We had a big old time last Thursday night. But I'm just curious, like, that's a lifelong dream. Anybody who's ever drag raced, Mike and I talk about this all the time, Carpenter and I, that like, if you've ever dreamt about drag racing, you've likely dreamt about going pro stock racing. I mean, they've got to be beside themselves.
Honestly, like, since I was little, I've always wanted a pro mod race. Like, that was always the goal. And then when Dad and Papa got the new pro mod car, I was like, oh, this is my chance. Yeah, that did not go well. They were like, you're not getting in that car, so try again. And that's kind of where the pro stock came about. And I know that they've wanted it to have a pro stock team forever. So I'm just extremely excited for them and proud of them that all their hard work has paid off and they get to have it.
It's fantastic. I'm curious, your role in this shouldn't be overlooked, right? I mean, you have done a great job keeping your team in front of the world, right? I mean, you guys dived in right amidst the global pandemic during COVID. We had quarantine with the Carusos, you and your dad bringing on guests. You guys were going live all the time, like not every day, but damn near every week. And we all, I think, kind of got to know you. How much do you think that effort, because you hear me preach about this all the time on this show, like you can't wait for Fox to interview you. You can't wait for ESPN. I mean, the likelihood of them ringing your door and like shining a light on you or putting you on SportsCenter, I mean, it's not at all likely, actually. I mean, it's not going to happen. And in 2021, we're all carrying around like a 4K camera in our pocket. I'm curious, I mean, how much do you think your guys' willingness, you and your dad collectively, to be out, to put yourselves out there, to have these conversations publicly, to do interviews and stay in front of the camera, how much do you think that's contributed to this moment you're in right now?
Honestly, I think it's helped a whole lot. Dad is definitely the one to pat on the back for the show idea. When he brought it to me, I was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, nobody's going to listen. But throughout the duration of it, it's brought us so many new friendships, relationships with companies. So honestly, I think it makes a world of difference. As in, if we didn't do it, we probably wouldn't have the partnerships we have or the support that we have. So it's.
Do you hear that from your sponsors? I mean, when you think about Wright Trailers and the other brands that you've been associated with, NGK, I mean, is that Powerbuilt Tools? Does that stuff resonate with them? I mean, because this is something, there's a lot of young racers such as yourself and kind of young aspiring racers and up and comers that watch this show every week. And I'm just curious, I mean, do you get positive feedback from those brands?
So they honestly require you to be active on social media and do different things. I know from experience with NGK, they'll email and say, hey, do this, this, and this, and send us the videos. So they have definitely noticed it and they have made comments and they're like, well, are you going to continue? Like, they're definitely intrigued by it. So it helps a lot, I think, because it sets you apart. You're not just sitting there doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. And that's what they want.
I mean, and I honestly, when I look at the sport right now and I look at like the world, every company is faced with, like, if you're in business in 2021, you're in show business, right? I mean, marketing, trying to stick out in this world is very difficult. It requires a focused effort. It requires a concentrated effort. You can't just expect it to happen. Yes, there are exceptions to the rules, but I mean, you have to be promoting yourself. You have to be trying to find a way to cut through. And you've got a lot of holes to fill. Like we always talk in our business about all the buckets that have to be filled. When we first launched our business, all we had to worry about was Drag Illustrated, the magazine. Like, okay, we got to make sure there's something on the pages, on every page of this magazine this month. Well, the next thing we know, we've got a daily updated website, and that takes tons of content. It's hard to fill that bucket. Then you're trying to fill your Facebook bucket and your Instagram bucket and your TikTok bucket, your podcast bucket, your email newsletter bucket. And I think a lot of these companies are looking for people like you that can help them with the responsibility that is creating all this content. And if you're going racing every weekend and they can be involved and you can provide them videos or make posts or whatever you come up with, I think it's a really valuable thing. I mean, it's more than just selling parts or gaining notoriety for them or helping them build their brand. I mean, hey, they're trying to fill holes. They've got those same buckets to fill, and people like Camry Caruso can help them fill it.
See, I love being able, with Wright Trailers, perfect example. I help them with all of that as well as our stuff. And now with Titan Racing Engines. And I'm excited because there's so many different ways that you can fill all of the buckets, like you're saying, especially being at a racetrack every other week or every week. There's so many interesting people that a lot of the huge media doesn't even realize. Like, you guys do a really good job at showing everybody, but there's a lot of them that you'll see the same people every other week. So I think it's important to be different and showcase different stories than everybody else's too.
I agree 100%. So take us through real quick. Let's talk a little bit hardcore about racing. From what I understand, the Caruso family racing has acquired all of Alex Laughlin's former Pro Stock operation, primarily Jerry Haas late model Pro Stock Camaro. From what I understand, that car is already on its way, already arrived at Jerry Haas's shop in Fenton, Missouri, and will be updated, outfitted with like a 2021, like a late model front end. So it'll look like many of the other cars in the class. You'll be going up there, I'm sure, before long to get fitted. When do you guys anticipate, starting to make some of your shakedown runs?
So, like you said, we've already picked up the car. It is actually at Jerry Haas's already. It was there a couple days ago, I think. Me and Dad will fly out tomorrow morning to go get fitted and everything. And it's just a quick day trip. We'll be back in hometown by, I think, 10:30 at night. We should have the car a few weeks after that. Probably January, before we actually go to a racetrack and make sure everything works correctly.
Right. I mean, do you have any, like, being that you've been racing in Pro Outlaw 632 within the PDRA all throughout 2021, racing a car with a bigger engine, but a similar performance, low 420s in the 8th mile, a real deal hot rod with a Liberty shifter. I mean, obviously a Lenco in that car, but a Liberty shifter. Are you feeling, do you have any concerns, or is there anything that's weighing on you at all as far as like jumping behind the wheel of a 500-inch Pro Stock car and dropping the bomb on it?
Honestly, I feel like this year has really prepared me how to drive one. Obviously, I'm super nervous to compete against anybody in the Pro Stock class. They're all really good on the tree, it seems like, and everybody does a great job. So I'm nervous to line up against everybody who's been doing it obviously longer than I have. But I think that my 632 car really prepared me on how to drive for Pro Stock.
I think so too. And I honestly think that everything that you've done to get ready for this moment, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times the things that you hear from new drivers is like they aren't quite ready for the sense of speed, or you hear, heard Matt Hagan talk about it a few weeks ago on the show, that you're behind the car, the car's way ahead of you. And I think it's interesting that you've already raced top alcohol dragster with like Randy Meyer. You've been like low 5s at 280 in the quarter mile. One of those times being at Orlando Speed World Dragway, which is completely bonkers to go that fast there. It's insane to me, but I do think that you guys have gone through the proper steps to be prepared for this moment. And I got to tell you, Camrie, we're just excited to see it all unfold.
I'm honestly super excited for it, and you guys have played a huge part in helping us get to where we're at. So definitely thankful for that. But I don't think I'll be behind the car just because of the 632 stuff. If I hadn't been in 632, I think there would have been a good chance that I probably would be behind the car. But Dad always says, he's like, focus on the big picture. Because I was like, after the second race, I was like, we need nitrous. I can't do this anymore. Like, this is terrible. I'm sick of being slow. Like, I was all mad. I was like, Papa, we need to make this a nitrous car. I'm done being slow. And Dad's like, focus on the big picture, dude. Like, calm down.
Yeah, so, it's one of those things where you're going to earn your stripes, and it's a whole thing, like racing these cars, leaving with a clutch. It's a different deal. It's a different animal. The expectations on drivers in Pro Stock, I believe, is greater than any other category in drag racing.
I'll be completely honest. Like you've said a few times, I've been in a bunch of cars, bunch of top dragsters, bunch of super comp cars, I was in 2 different alcohol cars with Randy in my Pro 632 car. I've had my fair share of race cars that I've driven, and I always made fun of Dad. I was like, oh, I can drive your Pro Mod better than you, just like joking with him. You don't realize how different a door car is to a dragster until you're actually in one. So I'm definitely thankful for the chance to get used to it before Pro Stock.
Well, I think you have, and like I said, Camry, we're super excited for you. We can't wait to see how this whole deal goes. We appreciate you taking some time with us on a Wednesday afternoon. It was great to chat with you last night. We had a lot of fun talking with Nate and your dad about the PDRA race. Well wishes. Be careful. Stay out of trouble. Tell Grandpa and Pops hi, and we'll be talking to you really soon. Thank you, seriously, for being here with us.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Take care, Camry. All right, I think we've got Murder Tundra completely gone from the program. Mike, I don't know where JT went, but he vanished.
He's getting ready. He knows what's coming next.
Does he know what's coming next? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
See,
I think we'll.
He's back.
There he is. He's back in
hand.
action. Oh, he's probably getting a drink or something. Is that right?
That was right.
Was that right? Was that right? I'm not at all surprised. All right, T, play the clip while I get myself a drink as well.
All right, buddy.
I don't have anything to mix. All right, guys, it's time for the music's back, right?
The music's a good thing for a party.
I think the music's a good thing for a party, and I tell you what, I've been looking forward to Drag Illustrated After Hours really since last Wednesday, right? I mean, honestly, this is like my favorite part of the show. Cracking open cocktails. All I've got is some freaking ice water.
What? Yeah, right. We know that's not ice water.
Russian water.
It's actually
Russian water.
Yeah, it's a clear liquid, but it's not water.
No, it's water. I don't have anything else. I don't have anything to mix it with. You know, I just forgot.
Just take shots.
I was busy. I'm not taking a shot.
That's optional.
I did think about taking a shot. I might take a shot. I don't know. We'll see what happens, man.
I think we did that last week.
We did do that last week. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's do highs and lows like you're having dinner with the Buck family, because today was a fun show, and let's just do. I think we can do highs and lows today. I mean, let's go around the table. JT, highs and lows of the day. What was your high of the show today?
Oh man, I just love having Lyle on. You know, I mean, he's great, and Camry's been a long time friend of DI and all of us, and that's really awesome news. You know, her going racing full time. So, but
you're gonna have a good low.
Yeah. Well, having Lyle on, former 30 under 30, and we talked about PRI, and it was kind of a cool story when we put Lyle in the 30 under 30. Nobody told him, and they waited until the party. And Tyler Crossno had a booth rented, one of the VIP booths.
Shout
and they
out
sat
to
down,
TC,
and they sat down, and then they broke it to him at the party, and he was just beside himself. I think he was about in tears, but yeah, it was an awesome deal.
It's cool, man. Mike, what do you think? What's your high of the day here? This was a really good show, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Lyle and Camry were awesome, but I really enjoyed the Dr. Meyer deal. I think that
was cool too.
It's
kind of low as well, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, because it's the truth of what's facing this industry, and we see the way everything's going with the EPA and with gas powered anything. I mean, they're trying to just basically wipe anything.
I didn't know that
gas powered off the face of the earth in a matter of a few
Somebody
years.
said in the comments.
Billy Carroll said in the comments that like
gas powered lawnmowers or something like that
in California.
Yeah. Here it is.
But
here it is. California will soon. Billy Carroll, shout out to our buddy Billy Carroll. He's a longtime friend of Drag Illustrated. I've known this dude for 15 years. Shout out to everybody at Comp Cams, matter of fact. But California will soon stop allowing the sale of new gas-powered mowers, leaf blowers, generators, and pressure washers. The law signed on Saturday orders regulators to implement the change by January 1st, 2024. And I'm going to tell you what, screw that. I mean, this is bonkers.
I mean it's crazy.
Political. It's just like
crazy.
It's everything else. They turned it into a political thing. We finally worked to refine internal combustion engines to the point where they're so efficient yet powerful. And I think all the damage or most of it that was done to the environment is in the past. And I get it. We've got to move forward with technology. We've got to move on, but it's too much, too fast. I mean, these Tesla's electric cars, Tesla Plaid. I want to drive a Tesla Plaid.
Me too.
Really, really badly. And I think those things are awesome. I'm all about technology, but we're not ready to switch over completely to electric. The U.S. is the wind blows the wrong direction at my house and I lose power. And then now we're going to, right? We're going to base all of our transportation. Oh shit! To plug in my fucking Tesla last night. You know what I mean? Like I've got an emergency. Yeah. I mean, guys, there are a lot of benefits that we take for granted with gas, the whole gasoline internal combustion process or whatever, the complete independence that it offers at any time and the quick refueling. And we're not right. All these gas stations in America, we're going to convert all these to charging stations, and you got to sit there for 30 minutes or an hour to charge up or something. Yeah. I mean, we're just not ready for it. And I think that Washington is using it as another political weapon.
So apparently this whole thing stemmed from something that's being called Volkswagen's Dieselgate.
Yeah. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. And I was hoping that you would be, Mike.
I'm not extremely familiar with it, but I do know it had something to do with Volkswagen rigging the emissions tests for their vehicles for like a very long time. And then they got caught. And then this basically opened up this entire can of worms.
I've never liked Volkswagens.
Yeah. So
Alicia mentioned, my wife mentioned the other day, like, hey, have you seen these new Volkswagen SUVs? They're like a crossover mid-size SUV or whatever. Nope. I don't
know that Volkswagen has recovered from that deal. It was really, really.
I've been seeing a lot of Volkswagens lately for some reason. I've just been noticing it.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's.
Did you put a dip in?
I did.
Yeah.
Of what?
Copenhagen.
Hey, let me get some of that tea.
Mike's the dipping king, man. Man, his face was like green. You know.
That stuff's bad. I tried it one time behind my dad's repair shop. I feel bad. I actually took a can. And I thought, you know what? All these guys come in and buy this stuff all the time. They seem cool. All these farmers and stuff that come into my dad's shop. So I remember, like, I didn't even get it, like, all, like, and like I just got some on my tongue and in my lip, and I was out.
I think that's what happened with Mike. It just went all over his mouth, and you know,
we're not sure what happened to Mike.
There's no coming back.
He's
from
like,
that.
I'm the dipping king.
We're not sure what happened.
It's the greatest video in the world.
Oh, there's a video? Oh my God. Oh
yeah.
Well, it looks like Nate completely forgot about joining us. That's okay. Well, I didn't know anything about this Volkswagen stuff, so I'm glad you knew something about it, man, because
we need to dig into this a little deeper, evidently. Yeah. Because this is
it's just, I mean, we have to accept that probably by the time we're heading to the nursing home, drag racing is going to be electric. And that's I think the thing that we're going to be seeing probably in our lifetime is that all these motorsports are going to go largely or all electric. And I don't think that that's awful. I think I've embraced it in my mind
awful.
Already.
Oh, that's awful.
But
I think it might
we're
be
not.
awful.
It is. It's not going to be ideal, but it's just going to be what happens. But we're not ready for it right now. They're trying to make this change in like 5 or 10 years, and it's just not happening.
I mean, I'm actually not against. I don't know. Like I've watched.
They can have a class.
They can have a class, and I'm not
that's where it's going to
against
start.
And that's where it starts. And I actually thought about this a couple of years ago, that maybe we should introduce like an electric class at the World Door Slammer Nationals. I thought, you know what, might be a great way to get Chevrolet, Dodge, Ford involved, get them excited about our event. You know what I mean? Because clearly, Dodge is really the
shocking
only super
thing
active.
about that is to be electric.
Yeah, I know the shocking thing about it.
Shocking,
JT
right?
with the dad jokes, but I mean, I did really think about it. Because I do think it would be a great way to engage like those major Detroit auto manufacturers, and that might be a play to get their attention. Because I mean, it doesn't look like Pro Stock's doing it, right? I mean, we don't, you know what I'm saying? Like nothing else that's going on in drag racing seems to be getting their attention. Well, it's because Pro Stock
was conceived as factory hot rods. It was the manufacturer's way to reach the racing audience and put their product on display. So when that happens and they're all electric now or whatever, that's where they're going to have to display it.
It's interesting. Stan Waxberg watching along on YouTube. Do you guys know if anyone is creating a noise device for the electric race cars?
They pump sound into the cars. I know that. In fact, a lot of these Mercedes, BMWs that are electric now or hybrid actually play engine sounds through the speakers.
Well, like the little Traxxas.
Yeah, but I don't know about.
That's what I was just getting ready to say, because somebody should tag the guys at Traxxas, because I've got a couple Traxxas cars that have badass like speakers inside mounted in the body, and like they're really responsive and they sound good. bruh. I mean, they sound really, really good.
You know what you're going to hear with electric drag racing is a bunch of tire squealing. You're going to hear noises that you've never heard before, which are really, you're going to hear transmissions clunking and shifting or whatever. I mean, if they have transmissions, I don't even know. That's probably another thing that's going by the wayside.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I will tell you that like I get a kick out of the Tesla stuff, especially like if you get on YouTube. If you get on YouTube and type in drag racing, you're going to see a ton of Tesla videos. Like the top results,
Teslas will wax just
about
everything out there right now.
They run 920s. The Tesla Plaid, I mean, they run low nines in the quarter mile bone stock. I mean, that is absolutely insane. I mean, that's crazy. My ZL1, it would be lucky to run 1090s. Probably with radials on it, and you got
humble brag.
No, it wasn't a humble brag.
Right.
What, I mean, don't you? I bet your BMW X5 M33 or whatever that thing will run 11s probably.
I don't know what it'll run.
They things run good, but like my point is just that like you go out and you think you're getting a badass car, you know what I mean? And then there's one that's silent that you plug into the wall and it runs. I mean, single digit elapsed times is rare air. Like that's you got a real deal.
Oh, there's no doubt. I love watching YouTube videos of people. Well, two things: tech reviewers that don't know anything about cars, and they give them a Tesla Plaid to review it, just like it's an iPhone or something. That's some of the funniest shit you'll ever see. It's people that have never been in anything faster. I mean, these people have like a Hyundai Elantra as their car or whatever. They put them in this, and they're talking about the tech or whatever, and then they mat it and just change their life. And then the second thing is when people that have those cars, like their family gets in it, like their grandmas or their parents or something, and they mat it. Those are also, I love watching those.
That's how the streetcar takeover guys, wasn't it like Chase? Wasn't it Chase that put his grandma or something in the car and the video went viral?
Yeah, he put his grandma in his like Mitsubishi Evo, and like it was.
Yeah, and they got on like
Curtis Thomas says
the Today Story or something like that, and that's when their shit blew up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Curtis Thomas says Plaids are killing the grudge game.
That's hilarious, man. I believe it, dude. I mean, because I can't tell you guys, having been a part of the street scene, like a single digit car is bad fast. I mean, that is bad. One of the things that I get frustrated about with like the sport of drag racing is how desensitized we get to stuff. Like, a 10-second car is crazy fast. And I'm not just trying to like stand up for Vin Diesel and Fast and Furious. Like I'm literally saying that that's a very, very fast car. And you start talking about a car rolling off an assembly line that's, like I said, electric. I understand they're extremely expensive. Not extremely expensive. Like they're $120,000 or something like that, which is obviously very expensive. But like, I mean, but you think about how much money you'd have to spend on like most late model performance cars to run like that with that kind of, I don't know. It's very interesting to me personally. I don't know. And I hate, like I said, how desensitized we get to it because I don't know. It feels like everybody's got 1,000 horsepower street car and 1,000 horsepower gets thrown around so loosely these days. It reminds me of telling girls I loved them when I was in high school. You know what I mean? Just every one I encounter,
tell them what they want to hear.
With. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like,
that was our motto.
Yeah, I love you. Wait, what? Yeah, I love you. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I love everybody.
I think for Tesla, it's good that we've got a crazy sumbitch like Elon Musk running that company. I think that's why the Tesla Plaid exists. If there was just some corporate group or whatever running that company or making those decisions, I think we'd be in a whole different environment when it comes
to
and
it's like if you look at the what was I going to say? Oh, I saw a commercial the other night for like a new Porsche that's all electric. And it's also like, it seems to be garnering the attention and the focus of like all the creatives.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like all the creatives at these companies, because it was like the coolest looking car I've seen in a while. You know, like the wheels are sick and it sits right. I mean, the stance is on point.
All funding is going.
Yeah.
I mean, they've shut down internal combustion engine development at a lot of these companies.
Yeah, it's very interesting, man. I don't know what to make of it.
We've seen like the peak of factory internal combustion engines.
Okay, so we're going into the last 20 minutes of the show here, and I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this, for being a part of this conversation every week. I would remind everybody, we got 20 minutes or so to go. If you do have questions, if there's something you want to talk about, let's dive into some of the silly season stuff. I see all these comments about, Stan Waxberg's asking if Alan Johnson is going to Coletta or Team Stewart at the end of the year. There's tons of silly seasons. I think this is going to be, at least for what it's worth, I don't think I will have never seen this much movement as we're about to see. I don't know that it would be right. It would kind of go against a lot of our standards here and practices to talk about some of the things we know about. I'm not trying to flex. That's not a humble brag, Mike, but we're blessed to have great relationships with a lot of people.
He's mad about that.
No, I'm not. But there's a lot of people. I mean, I think we're right. I mean, we have a lot of great relationships in this industry, and we've been able to maintain those by not spilling the beans every time we have the opportunity to do it. I'm going to come out and say that I actually don't know right now what Alan Johnson's plans are. I mean, that's AJ, Alan Johnson, that whole camp, Alan Johnson's Performance Engineering. I mean, they've always been a play it close to the vest, tight lips in that camp. I don't know that. I'm not sure what their plans are. It would appear to me that Mike Salinas seems pretty confident that he's going to be a part of their program headed into 2022. He's been on the record multiple times, been quoted in various places talking about, hey, as far as I know, Alan Johnson and Brian Houston are going to be tuning our car in 2022. So I'm anxious to see that one. I will tell you guys that it's not my place, but this announcement from Tony Stewart tomorrow at ZMAX, like we said, John Neal saying that Lone said Coletta on the Fox broadcast. If that's fact, that's a very interesting thing. I will say that I'm not totally against it, because I will say, for all the money and time and effort that Coletta Motorsports has poured into the sport of drag racing, they deserve to win. You know what I mean? And I don't think they've had the success that they should have had. You know what I mean? The fact that Doug Coletta is not a multi-time world champion. I mean, we had Clay Millican on this show last Wednesday say that he's the best there is.
Yeah,
that he's the best driver in the class.
So underrated, because he's like a Clark Kent type of guy with the glasses and just very quiet. But yeah, he's a legend in racing circles. But he's been the victim of some bad luck, like the run. I mean,
can you imagine being on the losing end of that deal?
So we'll see with that. I think it's going to be interesting. We hear about this every year. I think everyone hypes up the silly season cycle, but we've been hearing rumblings that this was going to be a big one. So I'm kind of excited to see this actually come to fruition and to see some of this movement. I think it's going to bring excitement in the off season and at the start of next season.
Question, Mike, JT, you guys are both big time sports fans, big time football fans primarily. But you also pay attention to NBA basketball. I'm a big NBA fan. I'm curious, what do you guys think of it seems like everybody's afraid to talk about this stuff. Do you agree? Like, here we are kind of being a little bit, you know what I mean, guarded and a little bit protective with what we say because we're afraid of upsetting somebody or whatever. But if you look at the NBA specifically, the most exciting time of the NBA season outside of maybe the finals is the days and weeks leading up to the trade deadline. Right? I mean, it's fun to talk about, and everybody's talking about it, and nobody's worried about pissing off a player or a coach. I mean, hey, man, it's what people are saying. So I get a little bit bummed out by ourselves. I'm going, you know what? Maybe we should be airing this all out.
We should be. These platforms haven't existed. We talked about it to open the show. A show like this, or the numerous other ones that exist that are sort of coming up to fill in the gap that exists for this type of content, to talk about that. Because before this, you were left with either traditional media or the organization itself to come out and say it. And I get NBA or NFL, they've got their own sites or whatever, but it's largely the independent media, and it's the point counterpoint type shows that dig into these rumors. So I think that now's the time to shine for this platform.
Do you think it's sacrilege to talk about this stuff? Because I was actually watching another show.
I don't think we're hurting. As long as we're not causing issues or spreading false rumors. But if we're talking about stuff that we've heard or confirmed, or even just analyzing moves that have been made, that's another thing. That's a huge thing in
if
NFL
that person went
NBA.
to that. Yeah, if that person went to that team, what would that mean and whatnot? And I think that and there's also been a lot of people in the media that have they've taken their shots, and released a big trade or something when it actually wasn't even in the mix. And they were just trying to be the first out to get the information out. And that doesn't always work for you either, because then you become, you're not a credible source after that,
So you have to I think, because what I'm referencing specifically is, I believe it was 2 weeks ago or maybe last week on WFO radio. It was like NHRA Tuesdays or NHRA Wednesdays when Joe Costello had Alan Reinhardt on the show, and they touched on this. There was a lot of people in the comments, which they do. Joe does an incredible job with that show. It's probably one of my favorite ones to watch in our sport. And I'm watching along, listening, and the subject of this silly season, all these rumors and whatnot came up, and both of them had very strong opinions on, Alan Reinhardt referenced this conversation that he had with, I think, Jeg Coughlin Jr. at some point in the past, and, had this conversation about how it's really disruptive to the team, and it kind of plants seeds, and it gets all this stuff stirred up when maybe it's not necessary and it doesn't help. And they both, Joe and Alan, were kind of just kind of acknowledging that, hey, we don't want to contribute to that. We don't want to disrupt teams. We don't want to do anything that's, that could hurt, not help. And I respect that. But at the same time, isn't it heavy is the head that wears the crown? If you're going to race at a professional level and you're going to be a part of one of these teams and you want the spotlight and you want to sign autographs and you want to get, all the accolades, what did Clay Millican say? No fame, no blame. Hey man, when you're going to be front and center and you're going to race at the highest levels of the sport, I think you're going to have to deal with some distractions and outside noise. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe those guys, because they are directly connected with NHRA, maybe they feel strongly about that. But for us and any other independent outlet, is like you said, as long as it's not just completely untrue or doesn't jeopardize any kind of negotiations that are going on, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think that it brings excitement. The fans can and the audience can engage and talk about it. And it's just it's a storyline, something to latch onto. Yeah,
and that's how I see it. And I appreciate you kind of echoing that sentiment, because I felt like maybe I'm going to end up on an island out here. And we have historically throughout the years, there's been many times, with Drag Illustrated where we'd had an inside line on something, and we chose to step back. Chose not to report it.
And if that was presented to you as off the record and we can't talk about it, that's another thing as well. And I'm sure those guys, Joe and Alan, are privy to a lot of information that is off the record. And if that's what they're referring to, then yeah. But if it's something that the audience in the comments is already asking about and wants you to talk about, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I tend to agree. So on that note, I think I'll just go out and say that I think this announcement tomorrow from Tony Stewart Racing is going to, more than likely, I think they're going to be fielding their own team in 2022. I think there's some obvious people that will be associated with it. I don't want to steal the thunder. I don't want to steal the buzz that's surrounding this event. So I'll leave it to them to deliver that news tomorrow morning.
There have been a couple questions about how can they watch. I'm not really sure what the situation will be, if they'll be streaming it, if there'll be any kind of broadcast on NHRA. But I will be there, and I'll try to go live either on Facebook or on YouTube on the DI page and try to bring you guys some of that news, or record the video and get it up soon.
Glenn Cromwell, NHRA president, is going to be there. You can assume, it's safe to assume this is a major announcement. There's been rumblings. I think it's only been a matter of time before Smoke, here I am calling him by his nickname, Tony Stewart, had a sizable, presence in the sport of drag racing. I don't think I appreciate what he had to say about getting his license and stuff like that. But anybody that I've ever introduced to the sport of drag racing, especially car guys and people that have get into this type of stuff, it's an addictive thing. You want to have a dog in the fight. And I venture to say that, we're going to see a couple of operations, a couple of teams fielded by Tony Stewart in 2022 and beyond. And I think that will be the first of many dominoes to fall as far as Don Schumacher Racing is concerned.
Well, we saw the first one today. They went ahead and released the news about Tony Schumacher, which we talked about earlier. And someone said, do we think we're going to see DSR downsize? And I would say that that's a pretty safe bet, because really, it's hard to go up from where they are now as far as the number of cars. So I would say you may see a realignment and a downsizing.
I do. I think it's safe to say that you're going to see a realignment and a downsizing. I do think most of the people involved, as far as like high-level drivers, the Antron Browns, it's been well known for a while that he was going to form his own team, and that was something that he was doing, like with the good graces and encouragement of Don Schumacher. Like, this is something that Don Schumacher, he's obviously developed a close relationship with Antron over the years. Antron, I was reminded of it this weekend, what a star he is. Like, being able to see him in his element and being at the track and announcing while he's racing and watching how he engages with people and interacts with fans. That guy is a freaking superstar. And he will clearly land on his feet. I think he's going to be a phenomenal team owner. I think he's a guy that's not going to settle for having a single car out there. I venture to see, I think we're going to see Antron Brown and another prominent team teamed up in 2022. I don't imagine a scenario where Ron Capps isn't out there with Napa Auto Parts on the side of a funny car in 2022. Will that arrangement change? Obviously, big news that Tony Schumacher is going to be back full-time. I mean, I think we're going to see, like you said, a reshuffling of the deck, but also a reset. I've been saying for a while that I felt like drag racing in certain situations needed something of a reset to happen. This may be it. I do think we saw some of the pieces falling into place this last week for Tim Wilkerson. I mean, he's obviously had Chad Green running a second funny car throughout 2021, not full time. I wouldn't be surprised to see that expand. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tim Wilkerson with a Top Fuel car close to full-time, if not full-time, or maybe a couple of them. I think he's developing his own kind of rent-a-ride empire that's going to be very successful. So it's going to be, I think this is going to be the most exciting off-season as far as people moving around that I've ever seen.
It's kind of a market correction is what I would call it, to where these teams were built around a certain pay scale, a certain economy that existed a handful of years ago. And then through COVID, through the different things that have happened, the adjusted pay scales that NHRA introduced in 2020 and has carried on into 2021. So it's these team owners, guys like Don Schumacher and these other team owners, they're not wealthy and have been doing this for, in Don's case, 50 years or whatever, for no reason. They know what they're doing, and I think they're going to adjust and realign to match the current climate, which I don't think is a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing. It's going to allow the sport to continue to grow or rebound from what may have happened last year.
Have you heard Eric Carey, longtime friend of the show, asked, have you heard that No Prep Kings could be going to an 18 race season next year? I have heard that. You have heard that? I haven't heard that. That scares me a little. I mean, I love that the market seems to want it.
Yeah,
but
we've talked about this. It feels like they could have 118 races and get away with it next year because that deal is just hot. And I think that they're going to push the envelope as to the number of events that they can get away with.
Well, that's 18 weeks in a row. We're going to have to be on the show Monday nights now. The DI ride along is going to intensify. Man,
what are we going to do, T?
Buy more beer.
Yeah. But that's a huge, that's a big thing, man. We were able to talk earlier this week with Jeff Lutz, and I was so excited to have him on the show because I think those guys deserve a lot of credit, guys and gals, because going racing that much week in and week out, crisscrossing the country, that is not for the faint of heart or the light-walleted. You better be.
It's a more intense schedule for everyone except for NHRA pros or Top Fuel and Funny Car.
Literally. And I just think that, man, that's impressive. And if they're looking at expanding it, obviously it's the people involved, Pilgrim Studios, Discovery, Sam Corcus, the whole group, everybody that's got a hand in this deal, they're smart people. And I'm sure if they are going to make that move, they see the demand, they see that there's a market for it. However, I will tell you that it does scare me. And I wonder if that's something that they couldn't stair step that over the course of time, because I know I go to the UFC and boxing, mixed martial arts quite a bit, but I watched an interview with the UFC president, Dana White, the other day, and he talked about how they have 54 events a year, and that's incredible in one breath, and the market's supporting it. But I know as a real fan of that sport, I can't keep up. There's too much. There's more than I can consume.
In the South, we say, get it while the getting's good.
Yep.
I don't know if that's a thing everywhere else, but
it is a thing.
And that's why you're, as a hardcore fan, you're almost overwhelmed. But apparently there's a reason they're doing it. They're making money. The networks want it. The sponsors want it. The advertisers want it. And I think that's the same thing with NPK. We'll see how that shakes out.
Hopefully the trickle down, of the funds Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and hey, man, money solves all pretty much. I mean,
and
if
they're making a ton of money and can pay more per race, or whatever the TV contracts are for these teams or drivers, and it makes sense, then you've got guys that can quit their jobs and go race full time.
I mean, when it first started out, it wasn't that way at all,
right.
And then if they got cut from the show, like they had to be available to race at all these deals. But and this isn't No Prep Kings, this was Street Outlaws. But then if they got cut from whatever episode that they were racing on, then they didn't get any money.
Literally, I mean, remember we actually got trapped. JT and I got stranded in an airport in Valdosta during some crazy storm, winter solstice or some shit, and we were down there with Doc. There was somebody else, whatever, a handful of the people, the original, like the OG Street Outlaw crew, and they were kind of at the time, like, hey man, I was like, hey, you got to be so happy with the show blowing up. This is so exciting. I'm so happy for you. And they were like, yeah, it's cool, but like you can't make any money, you can't pay your mortgage with a autograph, with a Sharpie or whatever, and I was like, and I'm glad to see that kind of correcting,
I wonder how much it's changed. I don't know. I don't have any information as far as how much that has changed, but you would think that it's gotten better. Well, I think at the beginning it was very top heavy on their initial stars that they had.
Well, and those guys weren't even getting that much. I mean, they gave us the numbers. I mean, I don't want to repeat
when we had before we even had the original Street Outlaws cast on the cover of the magazine, we had a big feature with Justin Shearer in the magazine. Do you remember this?
Yeah, when they were racing backwards up the track at Thunder Valley.
And so I think that he gave us some information, and I think it's changed a lot since then. But it's again back to the same thing of that's great, money's great, growth is great, evolution's great, but it is going to shorten that fuse, just like we've seen with so many of these classes.
Well, I mean, and to be honest, we didn't ask like Jeff Lutz for his pay stub or anything, but he seemed pretty happy. I mean, did you sense that?
Yeah,
I mean,
I did.
While talking to Jeff Lutz, I sensed a guy who was comfortable. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't any like fear on his face. There wasn't any stress. This was a guy that was comfortable in his station in life. And, I think if we read between the lines there a little bit, clearly they're taking care of him.
Yeah, I would say so. They have to be.
All right, next question. Dave Deming asks, again, can a turbo combination compete under the current rule package in NHRA Pro Mod? Well, I mean, obviously Lyle Barnett won. It was a whole shot win, a sizable whole shot win. Justin Bonds had probably him and Jose Gonzalez, they've had amongst the baddest Pro Mod cars in drag racing relatively recently, have the best equipment, fierce competitors. So, I mean, like if Justin goes 40 or 50, we're not talking to Lyle today. You know what I mean? Like that's not lost on me. However, we don't race on paper. You know what I mean? Like that's not what happened. I do think we saw enough from the turbo car. Mike, I'm anxious to get your perspective on this. Like 252 miles an hour, the car was a machine in the mid 580s, right in the mix. You did have that Hail Mary run from J.R. Gray and the Mike Janis camp like that. They go out and go like 578 or something on Saturday, and it's like everybody that was in eliminations. Everybody was kind of scratching their head going, hey, he's got us all clipped by like 5 numbers pretty easy. I mean, that was the car to beat this past weekend. So that was kind of an interesting storyline. But I'll tell you, this is some inside baseball. Talking to some people close to that deal. And I didn't ask for numbers because I didn't want to get put in a weird position or anything. But from what I understand, that twin turbo Hemi performed really well on the hub dyno. Like on par or above par or beyond what the Pro Charged Hemi makes horsepower wise.
Well, that's always power has never been an issue with the turbo combination. I talked to Justin Elks yesterday and just, hey man, how about that deal? Right. I mean, that's pretty impressive. First time out. Are we going to see more turbo cars return to the race after you guys have done that? And he said he wasn't sure, but the reason the turbo combination faded in favor of the Pro Charged combination is just that it's so difficult to run. It's so difficult to be consistent with that turbo car. So I don't know that they've got an advantage or that we're going to see Lyle's win bring a resurgence of turbo cars back to NHRA Pro Mod, but it's a reminder of the parity that exists in this class. And even Ricky Smith, Ricky Smith, who is not afraid to speak his mind, especially if he feels like his combination is behind the 8 ball. After going number 1, I believe it was Friday night, he gave another emotional Ricky Smith speech with Amanda Busick on the top end, thanking NHRA and commenting on that they had gotten it right. The rule package was right. And that he finally was excited to come race again and felt like he had a competitive car, and that it fell into his hands with the weather this weekend being hot. But when they went to cooler tracks, the other combinations would come around. So to me, more than anything, it's just a reminder of the parity that they have there at NHRA.
And I think that's what Pro Mod's been built on. Like, you should go to Vegas and see the turbo cars shine. You know what I mean? Like, you should go, and then earlier in the season or whatever, you see when the weather's right, and as Stevie Fast like to say, the blower gods are happy, you know, at Gainesville or whatever, or Houston, you see the blower cars out front. I mean, I think that's a great sweet spot for the class. That's racing, you know?
And I mean, here we're going to go F1 again, but some of the teams in F1 focus on handling through the turns or downforce or power, and at different tracks that they go to, depending how long the straightaway is or whatever, you'll see one team jump ahead than the other. That to me is one of the most exciting and interesting aspects of racing. If you're really into it and you follow it that closely and you know, hey, at this track, due to the elevation or various other factors, this combination is going to have an advantage. It's like golf, JT. We'll talk about golf. Go to some courses where long hitters have an advantage. You go to some courses where guys like a Phil Mickelson with the short game can have an advantage.
Yeah,
that's
hitting fairways. That's exactly right. Like,
right.
There's
but if every course they went to was identical, what would that do to golf?
Win? Yeah, the same couple guys would win every time.
So I mean, that's the heart and soul of drag racing, right? I mean, and I think they've got it close, man. I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be interesting. I think I wouldn't be surprised. I think we'll see Jeffrey Barker back in the mix. We had Jeffrey on the show a few weeks ago, right? And it was like, I mean, he won at Indy. I believe he'll be back in Bristol. I think he'll be a threat. Nitrous cars typically run well in Bristol. I remember a couple of Hail Mary runs from like Mike Castellana and Bob Ram at Bristol that, you know, in recent memory. I think we'll see those guys run well. It's going to be interesting. What I'm waiting to see is someone like Stevie Jackson change combos throughout the year. Like, I think that's the next thing we're going to see.
What's coming next.
That's what's coming next. I don't want to
see that.
I don't either.
I feel like that is what's coming next. Stan
Waxberg.
Give him
props though if somebody could do that though.
Yeah, Stan Waxberg had a comment here that reminded me of something whenever Lyle was on about Troy Coughlin, and we talk about that old story that Troy told us about melting the snow cone, and that is a strategy against the turbo cars, and we saw Justin Bond do that, I believe, in his staging procedure against Lyle. And as Lyle said, Justin Bond did absolutely nothing wrong, but he knew he used the turbo combination against itself in that situation to try to gain an advantage. That's another thing. When you have all these combinations, you can what works, what's favorable for a nitrous car in the staging procedure or for a blown car, using those things as tools in your tool belt, I think is an awesome part of the sport that we don't talk about enough.
I mean, it is. I mean, I think everybody's got different. I've found people who are all for it, and then there's also a totally, different perspective that it's unsafe and, that it's bush league and whatnot. And
it's all within reason.
It's all within reason. You know what I mean? I think that I can look at it and I can kind of see both sides of it with, fairly clearly. But at the end of the day, I mean, the rules are the rules. And if you've got 7 seconds to stage, you've got 7 seconds to stage. And I mean, it's, I don't think we like it the way it plays out sometimes. And I definitely think there's conversations that can be had about, the safety implications and whatnot. But I do want to mention that I honestly think I wouldn't be, and I don't know anything, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Stevie Jackson in Bristol with a nitrous car. I really wouldn't. I know they have access to that kind of equipment. They have the resources at Bahrain 1 Racing, I think, to make something like that happen. I don't know if he has like a car ready or anything, and you obviously can't just go grab your Roots Blown Pro Mod deal and throw a nitrous motor in it. There's way more to it than that. But I wonder if they have access to a car or if that's I think that's the next thing we're going to see happen in Pro Mod. I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet, but I think Stevie's the guy to do it.
Khaled was going to do that when we heard about him building the Roots Blown car while he was really
racing the Pro
leading
Charger
the field with the Pro Charger combination. It worked out in his favor when he was able to lend a car to Justin Bond and then bring that car out. But I thought we were going to see him switch combinations. Ricky has threatened it many times. So we'll see.
It's interesting because it would be like being casted as two characters in a movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's tough because it diminishes our argument that like the cars are like significant, you know, at least in Pro Mod. I mean, you've never heard me say the cars are the stars. They're not, right? I mean, the cars are not the stars. The guys that drive them, the gals that drive them are the stars without question. But I do think that in Pro Mod, and that's why Pro Mod is special, because the cars are a part of the storyline, right? I mean, they are, you know, the different power adders and all that stuff. It's part of the legacy of the class. It's part of the class's rich history. But I do wonder, I don't think I wonder if we'll get through 2021 without seeing a guy switch from race to race.
I always marry the driver and their character with their combination. Same. Like I think of Ricky and nitrous cars and, you know, the old school style gunslinger type thing. And then you've got like Brad Personette with turbos and, you know, the technology wizard, or I don't know. I tend to think of the two together. And when you start separating them, I mean, I know guys have changed power adders over the years.
It's like Mortal Kombat. Everybody had like their own finishing move. You know what I mean? And it's like the same thing. That's how I've always seen it too. Or like in a movie where you had a guy that always had a 6-shooter, right? Like Dirty Harry, right? You know, had a revolver.
Their weapon of choice.
Their weapon of choice. And it wouldn't be the same. Like Dirty Harry's not Dirty Harry if he's got a samurai sword. Right. You know what I mean? Or an Uzi. You know what I'm saying? Like if he rolled up with like a Mac 10, you know what I mean? Or an AR-15.
Sideways.
He wins.
Sideways.
Right, he wins. But like, it's not the same character. Clint Eastwood wouldn't look the same holding the freaking
bigger legend than what he was.
But I mean, do you agree though? Like, it's not the same.
I agree.
And then like,
I think
I don't know
things like that, but
like I don't think I don't know. I just don't see like if you watched I don't know, like some crime movie or whatever, like from 2000, like a modern crime movie, and everybody's using like, I don't know, stagecoach guns, like double barrel, short sawed off shotguns and stuff. Like it's just not on brand, right? It doesn't really
be fit. Like with NASCAR when a driver jumps from one team to another, you know, and you're diehard Ford fans or diehard Chevy fans, like what the hell, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, last question. We'll switch to Prep Kings.
I do want to say real quick. I did go on to the saveourracecar.com. I filled that thing out in like 5 seconds while we're sitting here.
It's nothing.
It's so
I would let's do our community a favor, and I'm gonna think about this a little bit. We're gonna find some ways to reward people for doing it. I don't know if we should run a contest where you have to prove to us somehow with a screenshot, and then we're gonna enter you into a contest.
That's a good idea.
You know, Tommy Cunningham is on here right now, owner of Stroud Safety, a big time supporter of everything we do. Maybe we can come up with some sort of prize pack where every month or every week we're gonna, you know, you send us your screenshot and prove that you've cast your vote or you've sent your message. We're going to enter you into a contest and we're going to give something away, or we need to find a way to make it, you know, to reward people for the effort. Not that we should have to, but it's the way the world works these days. If we can put some sort of incentive out there to make sure that people are taking this action, please listen to Dr. Jamie Meyer. I don't want to have this. We shouldn't be having this fight right now today, but we are, and I don't ever want to have it again. So do your part. Log on to Save Your Race Car, or what is it? SaveOurRaceCars.com. JT, can you throw it in the comments again so it's down at the bottom? SaveOurRaceCars.com. Fill it out. As soon as I get off this show, I'm going to fill it out myself, and I encourage everybody else to do it. We have to do our part, and I actually am excited. Like, I am genuinely excited to have the opportunity to flex. I want to have the opportunity to change things and to have a measurable impact on the future of our sport. So let's all rally together and do it.
Yeah,
and
it's really
like
easy.
I said, it's so fast. It's already filled out for you. You just
and then you'll get an email. You'll get an email from your representative, which is like a canned email, but it's pretty cool. It's like official looking. Like, thank you for your message about this issue. We're working on it. You might even get a phone call. I even got a phone call one time. I submit it all the time. I do it like every so often.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
And maybe put my phone number in at the end. It just depends, I think, the region that you're in.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. I mean, these are the things that we have to be doing, and I would like to make it. It needs to be a badge of honor, you know, that you've done your part. I mean, I look at this as important as like defending our freedom, guys.
It's kind of like an I voted sticker, really.
It's an I voted sticker, and that's what we're gonna do. we're gonna do I voted stickers. We're gonna send them out. Let's get I voted stickers made. I come up with something. We'll be creative, but let's get stickers made. Let's turn it into a status symbol. I want people to be proud to acknowledge that they did their part to save our race cars. Let's get some stickers made. I think we got to do something
Maybe
where
a
people
badge
can wear
for
it like a badge.
A badge for their Facebook profile.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Do like they did whenever whenever something happens in France, we put a weird France flag on our Facebook page, right?
Yeah. See, Curtis Thomas says I got a phone call from Colin Allred's office, and I
That's
bet
awesome.
I bet he gave them an earphone.
Curtis gave him the business.
Curtis said,
did you
how
give
long
him the business? I bet he gave him the business. Last question, and this is the only reason because I know we have some insight on this. Where's it at? Dave Deming watching along on YouTube. Hey, thank you, our YouTube subscribers. You guys are really showing up and showing out for us, making a huge difference. Like, God bless the social media and the platform Facebook has provided many. And like, I found a back doctor that I think, it's great. Connects us. Facebook's fantastic. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I got to tell you, I am the smoke and mirrors and the moving target. I'm just not a Facebook guy, and we're excited to see our YouTube audience exploding. So thank you for watching the show and following along and doing it on YouTube. Dave Deming, he asks, JT, I'm going to throw this up on the screen, hopefully not upset you. Okay, no prep kings. Can we talk about how ridiculous it is of the 405 guys making guessing the lights seem like it's classless or cheating? I think
that was that big fight we saw. Yeah.
Yes. But I think we can kind of skip over that because according to Jeff Lutz, who we had on the DI ride along Monday night, as we took in season 1, the season premiere of No Prep Kings, they've fixed that. I mean, is that how you interpreted it? I mean, they've got a red light. They've done away with all rollout. And so if you guess the light, you're going red. And I think they've eliminated this issue. Kudos to Sam Corcus, No Prep Kings, everybody involved, Jim Hughes.
I can't remember if he said 6 races or 8 races. I can't remember what he said, but he said they got it figured out.
Yeah.
Well,
so
we were watching the start of the season. I think they figured it out at some point between now and when that was filmed.
Yeah. So, I mean, my point is Dave Deming, and I think everybody else that's a fan of Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings, we all here we enjoyed watching the show Monday night. As I've said, no matter where you stand on No Prep Racing, whether you're a fan of the show or not, you have to acknowledge that it's fantastic for motorsports, fantastic for our industry to see drag racing on cable television, prime time cable television. It's a huge victory for all of us, in my opinion. So I think we need to support it and we need to pay attention. You don't got to watch every episode. I'm not asking that, but I don't think anything that what they're doing is we are watching.
You have to watch every episode.
You have to watch every episode.
No, everyone here has to watch every episode.
Everyone here has to watch every episode. But I just want folks to know that they are doing things to try and tighten that deal up. I mean, they're learning as they go. It goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. You can't skip to Z. You got to go through A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I mean, you got to hit them all. And it's a process. And I think that what I like about it is that they're willing to try stuff. They're willing to think outside of the box, and they're willing to look for solutions. When a problem arises, they don't just accept that it's a part of it and we're just going to have to deal with it. They found a way to solve that problem, and it's a victory. So I guess maybe that's going to go away. I don't think we're going to see the guessing of the light be a deal anymore.
Tommy Cunningham wants to know, JT, if you and I are sponsored by Coors.
I said we should be.
I think we sponsor Coors. You do, especially.
I definitely do.
The three of us. Well, at least Mike and I
were sponsored by Coors.
We were sponsored by Coors
in Denver. For the World Series of Pro Mod, Tommy, we really were. So we do have to represent.
Real quick story.
Also our favorite beer.
And I don't know
next to my fridge.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm loaded up, ready to go, ready to rock.
That may qualify for a problem.
No.
Dave Deming, hey, good that they fixed it. I watched and attended in Boise. That's awesome, David. And thank you for going to the races. I mean, seriously, we need people going to the races. But interesting thing about Coors Light, right? We were actually really lucky to get an official sponsorship from Coors during the World Series of Pro Mod in years, I believe all 3 years, 1, 2, and 3, we did the Coors Light can draw where we had a badass Coors cooler full of ice cold Coors Lights. each one of the Coors Light had a number on the bottom of the can, and we brought all of our World Series of Pro Mod invited drivers up to the starting line, and we pulled out cans, and you got to watch as Stevie Jackson reached down in there and pulled out an ice cold Coors Light and found out who he was going to race in the first round action. And it was super well received. The people at Coors were really excited about it. We should follow up with that.
The only issue was that like a handful of numbers were missing, and JT had them.
JT had them. Yeah. Oh, I guess I'm running Stevie. Man, and Mike and I almost got turned into Coors cans when we went and floated down the Golden River or whatever that river's called.
If you, I don't know what it's called. I think it is.
I think it's called the Golden Creek, maybe.
Okay.
It's in Whitewater Rapids. My son and I about died.
Well,
Lisa almost
Lisa
died.
about went in there. Yeah. You will.
It's a river that runs into the Coors Brewery right outside of the racetrack, Vandermeer Speedway. There's this beautiful little mountain town called Golden, Colorado, which may be heaven on earth.
Yeah, it is. Awesome.
It's one of the most incredible little communities in the world. I miss it badly, but we would always stay there every year for the World Series of Pro Mod. And the last year that we went, we stayed a few days afterwards to kind of enjoy it because I'm real bad about not stopping to smell the roses or whatever. So we would literally I'd have the first flight home on Sunday morning. Like the race would end at 11 o'clock Saturday night, and I'm on like a 7 a.m. flight home, 6 a.m. flight home to get back to work. And we decided the last year we were out there that, you know what, we should stay for like at least Sunday or Monday or hang out for a little bit and enjoy Colorado. And our way of enjoying Colorado was, what is it called? Like tubing, like rafting or tubing down this little river that runs through the center of Golden, Colorado, and it runs directly into the Coors Brewery.
It's the water that the Coors Brewery uses to make the beer.
You guys better not. You guys better got out to pee.
We did get out to pee, but the water was ice cold. And I remember they told us like, hey, if you go all the way up the hill, it's pretty
they said we had a melt last night, which come to find out means that the river is faster because snow is melting. And we're like, what are you talking about? And
this thing was too then, right?
Yeah, and colder. Yeah, this thing was moving.
It was sketchy at the highest level of sketchy.
And we had to rescue. We nearly lost half of our family.
Yeah, Nate literally couldn't get off. Nate Van Wagenen, editor-in-chief at Drag Illustrated, he's floating down the river, and we can't get to him. And it was so funny. Admittedly, we'd all had a few cocktails. And Nate looks over at Mike and I, and he's like, it's been real. He just chucked the deuces. And I mean, I didn't think we were going to see him.
We formed a human chain
to save your life
to him.
Yeah, and Lisa.
Because they were just gone. They had,
and then earlier upriver, Max and I, who at the time is like 11, and here I am, like, this is my dad, or my son. I'm his dad. I'm supposed to take care of him. He's like, hey, is this going to be scary? And I'm like, nah, we're floating down a river. Like, do you see this? It's like,
because where we're from, when we float down the river, like you put coolers inside of inner tubes, and you just float, and sometimes you got to get out and like walk your coolers.
Because the water's so shallow.
It's so shallow, and then you lay back down, and then you just drink beer and float. Yeah.
Right, and that's what I expected. So I told Max, I'm like, Max, like, do you see this? It's no big deal. Like, what? Like, so we walk like well away from the water as we're going up this hill to get to the entry point or whatever, and we get in, and I'm like, man, this water's moving pretty fast, and Max is getting a little bit nervous, but we're on like a 2-man tube, and I'm like, we're fine or whatever. So we jump on this thing and we go floating, and we don't get like very far at all. And it is lit. I mean, it's like, I've never been on like real whitewater rapids. I'm sure it wasn't that bad, but it was moving pretty fast. We'd all like gotten well away from each other, and it was a deal. Max and I go around this bend, hit some rocks, bounce into stuff, flip over. And I thought we were both done. Like Max, like literally I got a hold of Max. I'm like freezing cold. I got a hold of Max. I got a hold of him, and I'm trying to grab the tube, and I'm throwing his ass up in the tube, and he's looking at me. He's like, Dad, I thought I was going to die. And I'm like, I did too. Sorry. I thought we were both going to die for a second.
This is vacation, son.
Yeah, this is vacation. It's lots of fun. We're going to have pizza after this. Don't worry. Oh my gosh. Well, hey guys, great times. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And again, thank you everybody who tunes in.
You want to talk about this Mustang real quick?
What Mustang? Oh, we do. We have to talk about this Mustang real quick. We just got these photos from Courtney and the guys at Elite HP. Throw these photos up here real quick.
Check this out.
Now, I thought, I don't know where this car came from. We need to dive into this
sexy,
a little bit. It is for a Mustang, for a Ford.
No, it's just sexy, period.
I don't know. Now, what kind of plates are those? North Carolina plates on it?
Let me go back here.
South Carolina.
South Carolina plates.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
Good looking though, man. I believe this car is set up for like X275 competition or 275 competition. You can get all the details on this hot rod if you log on to elitehp.com. I'm actually going to go through the build list here real quick. I'm
Look how
glad.
clean this thing is. I mean,
I know, dude.
I mean, it's well done.
These cars that have full interiors like that, it's got a Hemi in it. It's got a Ford Hemi in it.
Yeah. Is that a
Wow. Okay, here we go. I got the details.
Boss.
2,000 horsepower, 600 cubic inch Boss Ford Hemi, 2-stage nitro system, 105 millimeter AccuFab throttle body. I'm sitting in front of a Hogan Racing's manifold. Turbo 400, straightened struts and brakes, fabricated 9-inch housing, Mosier, 355 gear. This thing is a hot rod.
Man,
275 series Mickey Thompson tires with double bead locks.
It's hard to get much more stock looking on a radio car like that. too.
Let's talk about this real quick. Where would radial tire racing be right now if all the cars still looked like this?
See,
man.
it would be
That thing doesn't even.
just
You wouldn't even think it was a nitrous car. I thought it was for sure a different combination until you see the bottle sitting in there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If cars still look like this, we wouldn't even be having these discussions that we're having today.
I mean, and it's tough because I don't know who you fault. Like, who do you fault? Because it's like racers are just envelope pushers.
Darn it, Jamie Hancock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know what? Great reference, right? I mean, one of the first guys to really have success with a Pro Mod on radials. But I mean, this is the drag radial competition that I fell in love with. These are the cars that I fell in love with. And these are the cars, in my opinion, that like a guy, a father and son in the stands, I mean, they see that and go, you're going to hear a dad say, man, I had a car just like that when I was in high school. And I mean, obviously it didn't have a 600-inch Hemi in it, but like that's the stuff you hear because they relate to that car. And it's just, that's what I think is, we talked about with Pro Modified. What are the recipes that make Pro Mod great? Or what is the recipe? And one of the things is all these different combinations. That's what makes Pro Modified great. What makes radial tire racing great, or in my opinion, what has historically made radial tire racing great, is cars that look like cars. Do you agree?
Now, there's only one of those cars to about every 100 Fox bodies at a race.
That's true.
But
I don't know about you guys. Every week when we do this with Elite HP, I'm looking in the background.
Yeah, I'm actually throw this back up here. Like, look at this shot right here.
What else can we spy?
From what I understand, that Lambo in the corner there is an underground racing built twin turbo Lambo. I think that thing makes 2,500 horsepower. There's like a super stock car or a modified car, a comp car. What else is there? There's a Cadillac CTS-V straight out of Vengeance Racing. Mike, that's your hot rod. From what I understand, that car makes 1,200 to the tire.
Woo!
4-door Cadillac, buddy. 4-door Cadillac. It's a real fun place to go over there, man. There's so much stuff.
If anybody's down that way,
much stuff. Curtis should check that place out sometime soon.
It's worth stopping for sure.
It really is, man. Well, hey, I do want to thank the guys at Elite HP, our partners at Stroud Safety, as well as the team at Flow Racing. These are the companies that keep this show going, keep us coming, talking about drag racing every Wednesday afternoon. Thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart. Be sure to tell a friend. I think that's really the what we need from people more so than anything else. It's great to click like. It's great to click share. It's great for you to subscribe to our channel, and we encourage you to do that. But tell someone. Right? Tell a friend. If you know somebody that would enjoy what we're doing, tell them about the show. Tell them to tune in. Hey, man, we'll give them a shout out if you let us know. We truly appreciate your participation each and every week right here on the Wes Buck Show. And I was going to try to get us some outro music, but my laptop died, guys. Really? My laptop, guys. So, JT, right, beatbox it, and we're out of here. He did it. He did it. I think you could pull it off. Here's the music that I do at our house. Dun 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 dun. That's
depends what time I'm walking.
Yeah, that's fitting.
I'm walking in the house.
That's the theme song to my life. Welcome to the circus. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you guys soon. See you next Wednesday or Monday night with the Drag Illustrated ride along on YouTube. Check us out. We will check out will it be? I guess there was another episode Tuesday night, so we're going to see episode 3.
Yeah, third.
Okay, it'll be the third episode of Street Outlaws No Prep Kings on Discovery Channel, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Our usual cast of characters, Lyle Barnett's going to join us, and I'm sure we'll have a host of others. So thanks, guys. Talk soon.
Thanks, guys.